Chapter 1398. At the summit, Xiaoqin did not rush to make a move. He thought about what that blood demon royal hall disciple said. He knew that each of the 18 devil emperors had their own devil palace. Simply put, the crown scion of the blood demon royal hall was the crown prince appointed by the blood demon monarch, who would ascend to the position of demon monarch in the future. Every highness was chosen from among the top talents of the thousands of direct descendants of the royal family after a cruel competition. Talent, strength, and scheming were all indispensable. Otherwise, when he became the demon emperor in the future, he would not be able to convince the masses. However, until now, there had been no news of the demon crown scions stepping into the Kunlun realm. Could it be that a devil highness would come this time? That would be interesting. Halfway up the mountain, old freak Qin used his ice and fire dual blades to fight against the 4 demon emperor Wu. One saber radiated a fiery light, while the other radiated a threatening cold qi. In the sky, half of it was fire, and the other half was frost. Xiaoqin watched in silence, deep in thought. The ice and fire twin blades were indeed ingenious. It was hard to imagine that someone could balance them so perfectly. Hua! Something strange happened in the sky. Fire and frost merged. Snowflakes mixed with sporadic flames fell from the sky. Old monster Qin's aura also merged ice and fire into one. The 4 blood demon clan emperor Wu's expressions became a little solemn. Even though he was fighting 1 against 4, he was not at a disadvantage at all. In fact, in terms of aura, he was even slightly stronger than them. Xiaoqin thought to himself, if not for the blood demon royal hall's royal clan disciple here, given eccentric Qin's strength, he would have been able to leave easily. Eccentric Qin had achieved a perfect balance between ice and fire, but the fusion of ice and fire was not so perfect. Xiaoqin stretched his hand out of the window. Snowflakes and some sparks fell on his hand. The seemingly calm snowflakes and sparks began to spin rapidly after they landed on his palm. The saber intense contained strong saber intense. Occasionally, they clashed with each other, producing intense explosions. However, it was suppressed by Xiaoqian's absolute strength. No matter how much it exploded, it couldn't escape from his palm. Withdrawing his palm, Xiaoqian glanced at it and frowned. The fusion technique was too inferior. Snowflakes and sparks were simply mixed together and did not form a whole. Compared to Zhang Xian's Taiji Dao, which fused yin and yang, the Taiji Dao was far inferior. However, to be able to witness such means was an eye-opener. Even though he had no use for it, it had broadened his horizons and invisibly increased his foundation. What was a foundation? It sounded mysterious, but to put it simply, it was a person's accumulation. Halfway up the mountain, that blood demon royal hall disciple nodded to himself. The ice and fire berserk saber art was indeed extraordinary. However, in the hands of eccentric Qin, it was not able to display its full potential. It seemed like there was a reason for His Highness to fancy this ice and fire berserk saber art. It's time to end it. The blood demon royal hall disciple stepped forward, preparing to deal with eccentric Qin, not wasting any more time. When Elder Qin saw the killing intent on the other party, he fell into complete despair. A crazy idea popped up in his mind. Just as Elder Qin prepared to self-detonate and the blood demon royal hall royal clan disciples prepared to make a move, a saber light flickered on the summit. In an instant, the ice and fire clouds in the sky were split apart. Sunlight shone down again. However, the saber light outshone its radiance, causing people to ignore it. In the next moment, a saber descended from the sky. The saber light was like a pillar as it plunged straight down. Its unparalleled sharpness forced the 4 demons out. When the tip of the saber stabbed into the ground, a shock wave containing saber intent swept out with a loud boom. The shock wave struck the 4 demons, sending them flying while vomiting blood. The world turned silent. A saber silently stabbed into the ground, exuding a faint air of pride. Who is it? The heart of the blood demon royal hall disciple sank, and his expression turned grave. Just this saber strike was sufficient to determine that the person who came was an expert. Bang! The reply to the Blood Demon Royal Hall disciple was a saber light. Pride soared into the air and hacked at the Blood Demon Royal Hall disciple. How fast! Before the Blood Demon Royal Hall disciple could react, he drew a sword and used his full power to knock away this saber strike in the time it took for a spark to fly. Clang! 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 Pride lost all its spirituality and fell to the ground in a sorry state. It seemed to have lost its connection to its master. Shadowless Saber Sovereign. The Blood Demon Royal Hall disciple held up his sword and looked towards the summit. When he saw that black war chariot, he finally guessed the identity of the person who came. When he thought about how he knocked away the Shadowless Saber Sovereign's divine weapon with one sword strike, his lips curled up in a somewhat cocky smile. The Blood Demon Royal Hall disciple smiled and said, "Shadowless Saber Sovereign, I thought you were very incredible. In the end, you are only a so-so. My clan's crown prince is very interested in you. Do you dare to come down and fight?" Right after the Blood Demon Royal Hall disciple spoke, a scarlet light shot out from his body. His eyes turned red, and scarlet flames appeared on the sword in his hand. This was the mysterious phenomenon that materialized after the Blood Demon Monarch's bloodline's unique Blood Fiend demonic technique was activated. Whoosh! 6 divine weapons descended from the sky. Before the Blood Demon Royal Hall disciple could react, an incredibly surging saber intent knocked him back. Clang! 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 The divine weapons pierced through his arm, forehead, and calf at the same time, pinning him firmly to the ground. A moment ago, he was still filled with fighting spirit. Now, he no longer showed any signs of life. He did not even know how he died. In the Blood Demon Royal Hall, a 4th Heaven Demonic World Royal Clan outstanding talent was already considered a top-notch expert. However, when facing Xiao Chen, he still did not have much ability to resist. When he used his full power, he could not even receive half a move. When facing the demons, Xiao Chen never showed mercy. He was decisive in killing, much stronger than he was 5 years ago. A buzzing sound came from the divine weapon. The 4 injured blood demons were all scared silly. After letting out startled cries, the 4 demons fled for their lives, not daring to linger any longer. At the summit, the black war chariot suddenly changed, turning into a black throne. 6 beams of starlight of various colors descended from the sky behind the throne. 2 horses turned into flood dragons and circled in the air before flying into the armrests, looking like dragon-shaped carvings decorating the armrests. On the throne, Xiao Chen wore a black mask that covered half his face. His hands rested on the armrests. The black throne shone with starlight as it descended from the summit to the middle of the mountain in an instant. Clang! 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 Pride and the other 6 divine weapons shot up and stabbed into the back of the throne. Shadowless Saber Sovereign, are you here to snatch the ice and fire berserk saber art as well? Eccentric Qin was shocked at the other party's strength. However, his temper remained strange, not showing any intention of thanking Xiao Chen for saving his life. Instead, the moment Eccentric Qin opened his mouth, he identified Xiao Chen as the person who snatched his ice and fire berserk saber art. On the throne, Xiao Chen showed a calm expression as he said honestly, "Please don't misunderstand. I am indeed interested in the ice and fire berserk saber art. However, I have no intention of snatching the saber art. Honestly speaking, with your talent, it is somewhat difficult for you to study the ice and fire berserk sabers. The ice and fire Dao does not have to be combined with the 2 sabers. You can try cultivating the ice and fire Dao with a single saber." Eccentric Qin smiled coldly and said, "What a joke. Before this old man comprehended the ice and fire Dao, I became famous with the 2 sabers. How can I neglect the roots and give up on the 2 sabers? Furthermore, how can one saber withstand the friction between the power of ice and fire?" Whoosh! Xiao Chen did not say anything. He stretched out his hand and pointed. A pile of mud on the ground turned into a human figure. Clang! The pride saber on Xiao Chen's back bounced out and landed in the hand of the human figure made of mud. With the saber in hand, the Taiji saber domain immediately spread out from the mud figure. Yin and Yang were two energies that were even more opposed to ice and fire. With one saber strike, they merged perfectly, forming a vast and imposing Taiji diagram. Occasionally, the mud figure turned into a dragon, shaking its head and wagging its tail. Occasionally, it turned into a fish, moving nimbly and faintly. As it walked in the middle of the sun and the moon, it appeared indistinct, showing thousands of changes. Eccentric Qin was momentarily stunned, unable to take his eyes off the Taiji saber. The yin and yang energy turned into two true dragons and merged into the saber in the mud figure's hand. A flash of saber light flew out and chopped the sky in half, revealing a resplendent and dazzling star chart of the universe. Eccentric Qin looked at the stars in the sky in a daze. The barrier of the sky that he chopped apart slowly mended. When the starlight was completely covered, Eccentric Qin recovered his wits. When he looked around, the shadowless saber sovereign's figure was nowhere to be seen. "Senior!" Eccentric Qin shouted somewhat absent-mindedly as he rushed over to the edge of the cliff. Chapter 1399. However, sometimes, there was only one chance. By the time one came to their senses, the opportunity would already be gone. It was too late for Eccentric Qin to regret it. He could only stare blankly at the cliff. Now, he understood that the other party was not here to snatch the saber art. He only came because of its fame and wanted to broaden his horizons. It was laughable that Eccentric Qin overestimated himself, mocking the shadowless saber sovereign. After seeing the shadowless saber sovereign's incredible saber techniques, Eccentric Qin was completely convinced. He could not help calling the shadowless saber sovereign senior. In a world where strength was everything, there was no clear distinction between seniors and juniors. There was nothing wrong with calling those with lower strength seniors, even if they were older than the other party. The shadowless saber sovereign is indeed unfathomable. Eccentric Qin sighed in disappointment. Then, he glanced at the corpses of the Blood Demon Royal Hall disciples on the ground, and his expression changed slightly. Now that the Blood Demon Royal Hall disciples died here, someone would definitely come to investigate. He could not continue staying here and had to leave quickly. Eccentric Qin's figure flashed, and he picked up the corpses of his two disciples on the ground. Then, he leaped into the air and directly jumped off the cliff. Eccentric Qin was indeed very cautious with his age. In less than half a day, the four demons who had escaped earlier arrived with a young man wearing a blood-colored robe inlaid with gold. Protector Wang Tian, this is how Boss Qin died. He could not even block one move before he was pinned to the ground, no longer showing any signs of life. The Blood Demon Royal Hall respected the Crown Scion. Behind the Crown Scion was a Dao Protector, who was very strong. Normally, it was a peak expert of the older generation. Below the Dao Protector were the four protectors. The four protectors were mostly royal clan disciples who failed to become the Crown Scion. Their strength could not be underestimated. Aside from the strong Dao Protector, they could be said to be second only to the Crown Scion in the Demon Royal Halls. Fortunately, Eccentric Qin ran fast. Otherwise, if this protector came, he would have died here even if he had 2 lives. The shadowless saber sovereign. It's him again. Heavy murderous intent flashed in the eyes of the Blood Demon Royal Hall's protector Wang Tian. In the past few years, the number of demon outstanding talents that died at the shadowless saber sovereign's hands was countless. Furthermore, they all died very decisively, so coldly that it was scary, leaving no room for negotiation. The various demon royal halls all placed this person on their must-kill list. Unfortunately, this person was elusive and elusive. He didn't leave a shadow behind. He never got out of the car and disappeared without a trace. There was simply too little information about him. Even if they wanted to ambush and kill him, they would not be able to find him. Protector Wang, there will be a Saber Dao tea party next month. The shadowless Saber Sovereign should be going as well. Should we? Wang Tian shook his head and said, there's no need. Although the shadowless saber sovereign is a headache, he has never taken the initiative to kill demons. He is still not the biggest problem. This time, the few demon royal halls are working together to lay a trap. We cannot disrupt our plans because of one shadowless saber sovereign. Lord Protector, the people from the Water Moon Alliance are here. In the distance, a warship with the Water Moon Alliance's flag soared through the clouds and quickly flew over. Wang Tian grinned. You guys sure move fast. I'll let you guys jump around for a few days. Let's go. The Protector let out a mysterious smile and left with the 4 demons. In this great age, winds blew and clouds churned. At every moment, there would be undercurrents. A plot targeting the various outstanding talents of the Kunlun realm was slowly being laid out in the Tianwu domain. No matter how this plot was laid or who laid it, the shadowless saber sovereign Xiaochen only brushed past this plot for now before leaving in a hurry. After leaving Gentle Cloud City, Xiaochen headed north. Then, he slowly descended on a desolate plain in the Tianwu domain. 7 divine weapons were stabbed into the back of the Black Throne, giving off starlight. Why did the war chariot turn into a throne? Although the reason was simple, it was a long and complicated process. At Xiaochen's cultivation, the Flood Dragon war chariot would definitely not be able to keep up with his cultivation. He needed to modify it and refine it again. During the 2 years at Heavenly Star Island, Xiaochen had been doing this. He first merged the 7 deadly sins and the cycle banner into the war chariot, turning it into a peak emperor-grade secret treasure. The difficulty of refining it was extremely high. Fortunately, during those 2 years, Xiaochen had been in low spirits. After jumping off the Emperor's Road, he had lost interest in the martial way for a long time. He spent all his time on this. He was completely immersed in it, and Xiaochen's intelligence and wisdom. After spending 2 years, Xiaochen finally succeeded and named it the Cycle War Chariot. It had 2 forms. One was a war chariot, which was geared towards long-distance travel and cultivation, and could conceal its aura. The throne form was more suited for combat. Not only could it increase one's aura and emperor's might, but it also had many other uses. As for the 2 blue-robed emperor-level flood dragons, Xiaochen had been constantly nourishing them with dragon souls for the past 2 years, cleansing their spirits with dragon energy, and refining their bodies with dragon blood. They had already undergone some changes. At this moment, the sky was overcast, and not a single person could be seen on this desolate plain. The Black Throne slowly descended, as if it was the Son of Heaven, descending upon the world. Countless spiritual beasts on the vast land trembled in fear under the pressure, unable to move at all. Xiaochen casually waved his hand, and the many spirit beasts felt like they received amnesty. They kicked up a boundless cloud of dust and scattered. When all the spirit beasts were gone, the entire desolate plain turned completely silent. Even the sound of the wind stopped, creating a strange scene. Xiaochen closed his eyes and entered deep thought, recalling all the things that had happened over the years. The scenes of him fighting with the many blades men appeared in his mind. Among these people, there were old men over 500 years old and Emperor Wu, who was not more than 100 years old. There were men and women, ghost race and fiend race, and many others. The only thing they had in common was that they were all bladesmen. Clang! After some time, pride shot out from behind Xiaochen. Then, divine weapons came out one after another. Xiaochen, who had his eyes closed, casually swung his arm and executed the life bestowal spell. 7 figures walked out of the soil, each holding a divine weapon and practicing their saber techniques. 2 years ago, Xiaochen's Purple Thunder divine incantation had already broken through to the 9th layer. The magic energy in his sea of consciousness had improved again. When he used his divine abilities, it was even easier for him to use them as he pleased. Xiaochen had already cultivated the life bestowal spell to the point where he could use the air as a weapon. 7 figures surrounded the throne, each executing their saber techniques. Boundless saber lights supported each other, rising and falling. However, there were simply too many scenes in Xiaochen's mind. Clearly, 7 figures were not enough. Many sabers flew out of the universe ring. With a casual swing, 49 figures leaped out of the air. After they caught the sabers, they landed and started practicing. As the scenes in Xiao Chen's mind flashed faster and faster, a desolate plain, cultivators wielding sabers could transform into 100, 100 into 1,000, and 10,000 into 10,000. Immediately, saber lights filled the sky on the vast desolate plain. As they intertwined, a vast and majestic scene of 10,000 people practicing the saber appeared. A huge taiji diagram vaguely appeared on the ground. Unknowingly, the 10,000 bladesmen split into half and stepped into the taiji diagram. The 5,000 bladesmen were yin, and the 5,000 bladesmen were yang. Their movements slowly became unified. Yin and yang flowed, each turning into a dragon. The originally disorderly 10,000 bladesmen looked over vaguely. It was like a person practicing the saber. Two indistinct dragons soared up and down. Suddenly, Xiao Chen opened his eyes, and the scene instantly froze. Xiao Chen had spent 2 years refining the throne under him. At the same time, he had thought of his own Tao. No matter how it changed, be it the immortal Tao, the Buddhist Tao, the martial Tao, or the demonic Tao, his Tao had never changed. It was the supreme Tao. By relying on the cycle war chariot, Xiao Chen could travel millions of kilometers in a day, traversing the Tianwu domain in 1 day. In 3 years, Xiao Chen traveled all over the Kunlun realm, visiting many bladesmen. The Taiji Yin-Yang saber formation before Xiao Chen was the most direct result. Taiji gave birth to Yin, Yin and Yang gave birth to the 4 divisions, the 4 divisions gave birth to the 8 trigrams, and the 8 trigrams gave birth to all things. The Taiji Yin-Yang saber formation was merely the first step of the Taiji saber Tao. There were still the 4 divisions, the 8 trigrams, and all things. Ka-Xie. Ka-Xie. The many bladesmen turned into dirt, and their sabers returned to the universe ring. The desolate plain returned to calm. Only 7 bladesmen remained, holding the 7 deadly sins and guarding the throne in 7 directions. Xiao Chen's gaze fell on a saber on the throne. Although the 7 deadly sins were good, the one he loved the most was the lunar shadow saber. Chapter 1400. Unfortunately, Ao Jiao did not wake up, so Xiao Chen could not draw the lunar shadow saber. He did not know when he could do so. Little Ao Jiao always made him worry. Shaking his head, Xiao Chen stopped thinking about this vexing matter. Then, he stretched out his hand and pointed. The 7 divine weapons all gave off a ringing sound as they returned to the back of the throne. Night fell completely. Xiao Chen sat on the throne and started to cultivate with his eyes closed. Whoosh! 6 beams of starlight descended from the sky. The starlight was like pillars as they merged into the cycle throne. Astral energy took the initiative to enter Xiao Chen's body. Absorbing astral energy and transforming it into cultivation was something that could only be done by cultivating the secret manuals of the Astral Palace. However, now, Xiao Chen only needed to sit on the throne, and he could do it. This was one of the many wondrous uses of the throne, assisting cultivation. While Xiao Chen absorbed astral energy, he did not even listen. The 9th layer of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation circulated quickly in his body. After the strong Purple Thunder Divine Incantation reached the 9th layer, the speed at which Xiao Chen absorbed the energy of the world became even more horrifying. If someone could see the formless energy of the world, they would discover that Xiao Chen's body was like a huge hole. Boundless purple energy was frantically absorbed from all directions. After the astral energy and the energy of the world were absorbed in the heart of an emperor, they turned into raindrops and fell. A whirlpool of 1,000 strands of primordial energy unfurled. It turned into a flood like a roaming dragon, flying around in the vast heart of an emperor and roaring ferociously. Xiao Chen enjoyed the sweet rain and greedily absorbed these raindrops, not letting a single drop go. According to the rules of the Kunlun realm, even the 9th Heaven's Emperor Wu only had 900 strands of primordial energy. However, Xiao Chen reached 1,000 a year ago. However, If one were to say that Xiao Chen's cultivation was equal to that of a ninth heaven sovereign martial emperor, that would not be appropriate. Xiao Chen vaguely sensed that his current cultivation was about that of a sixth heaven Emperor Wu. There was a huge gap between his Grand Mist energy and Emperor Wu's Grand Mist energy. Actually, it was not difficult to explain. Firstly, he had not gone through the Thunder Tribulation. Secondly, he did not have the real Emperor Wu's golden body, nor had he pushed open the Emperor's door to accept the Heavenly Tao's baptism. After his physical body broke some of the laws of the Kunlun realm, it seemed to be restricted by other laws. There were gains and losses. Now, he was in a rather awkward position. After the number of strands of primordial energy reached 1,000, it stopped increasing. His cultivation seemed to be stuck at a bottleneck, and he didn't know how to break through this bottleneck. No one had ever walked this path before. He could only keep his head down and continuously condense the 1,000 strands of primordial energy. He condensed them again and again until he could no longer condense them. Perhaps the answer could only be found in the mysterious Blue Dragon Palace. Although it was hard for Xiao Chen to raise his cultivation, his progress in the Saber Dao was unhindered, going further and further. It would not be an exaggeration to say that even the Saber Sovereign Wu Xiaotian's understanding of the Saber Dao might not compare to Xiao Chen's. A large part of the reason why Xiao Chen could instantly kill so many demonic world royal clan disciples was because of his comprehension of the Saber Dao, which reached great heights. The sun rose and set. In the blink of an eye, half a month passed. However, the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation had only circulated one great cycle. Xiao Chen opened his eyes and saw the sun in the sky, looking piercing and dazzling. He spat out a mouthful of turbid qi and turned the cycle throne into a war chariot. Then, two mutated black flood dragons pulled him into the air and soared into the sky. A beam of black light pierced through the boundary between space and reality. In less than 10 breaths, it broke through the barrier of the sky and arrived in the starry heavens. Inside the war chariot, Xiao Chen held the invitation that Wen Xiren gave him. 8 words were written on the invitation: Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor, Starry Heavens. Wen Xiren had placed this Saber Dao tea party in the starry heavens. It was probably because the cultivations of the participants this time were too high. The original Heavenly Cauldron City was no longer suitable as a venue. Otherwise, if a few greater heavenly martial emperors fought, they might accidentally destroy the city. There was no need to worry about placing it in the starry heavens. The vast starry heavens was boundless and boundless. No matter how one fought, there would be no need to worry about any consequences. After putting away the invitation, Xiao Chen casually opened a star chart and found the nearest starry sky relay station. Then, he let the cycle war chariot run freely in the boundless starry heavens. Occasionally, meteors flew by in the starry heavens. Some were large, some were small, and some were strangely fast. If one accidentally crashed into one, the chariot might crash and die. However, Xiao Chen did not care. Saber Qi lingered around the cycle war chariot, not scattering. Anything that got close to the meteorite would be instantly sliced into countless specks of dust. When speaking of starry sky relay stations, Xiao Chen could not help thinking about his first experience at a starry sky relay station many years ago. The mysterious master of that starry sky relay station had a high cultivation, unfathomable. Even now, Xiao Chen could not fathom that mysterious bladesman. He could not make out the depths of that mysterious bladesman. That mysterious bladesman must have been a senior bladesman. However, the starry heavens was very vast. Without the coordinates, it would be hard to meet him again if fate allowed it. 1 hour later, the originally distant starry sky relay station appeared in Xiao Chen's vision. Peering through the curtains, Xiao Chen saw an average-sized starry sky relay station, about half the size of a small city. Even so, the star-fixing stones it required would be astronomical. Regular people would find it hard to buy them. Only a large faction could obtain them. The starry sky relay station that Xiao Chen was looking for was one of these. This was because there were transportation formations there that could send one directly to the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor, saving one the trouble of traveling back and forth. The mutated flood dragon turned into an ordinary black horse and pulled the cycle war chariot, landing firmly in the starry sky relay station. Although the relay station was large, that was only relative to the other relay stations. Compared to the other cities of the Kunlun realm, it was still too small. With just the naked eye, one could see the borders of the relay station. Is your distinguished self going to use the transportation formation of this relay station? Whoosh! The moment the chariot landed, 2 cultivators from the relay station came to the window below the chariot. They looked up and asked Xiao Chen, "That's right. To the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor." "We cannot go there directly to the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor. We have to pass more than 10 relay stations of various sizes. Only then can we find a large relay station. Only a large relay station can have a transportation formation to the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor. How many essence stones do you need?" 300 essence stones will do. All the relay stations along this route belong to the Phoenix's Passion Palace. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand and placed down a spatial ring. When the person who spoke caught it and opened it, he was startled. There was a total of 6,000 essence stones in there, several times more than what Xiao Chen needed. "Is there a mistake?" "That's right. This is enough for 20 people. The transportation formation only needs to send me alone." After Xiao Chen spoke, the 2 horses pulled the war chariot and headed for the transportation formation. The remaining 2 Phoenix's Passion Palace disciples exchanged glances. This was the first time they saw such a strange person. "Never mind. Who cares? Just give him enough essence stones." Recently, there has been an extraordinary number of people going to the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor. Many of the older generation bladesmen have made a move. Naturally, the first Saber Dao Tea Party in this golden age is extraordinary. Basically, all the famous bladesmen have gone. The old will replace the new. This time, there will be many older generation bladesmen falling from their pedestals. Unfortunately, I am not a bladesman. Otherwise, I would definitely go and join in the excitement. The 2 Phoenix's Passion Palace disciples chatted as they walked, preparing to activate the transportation formation. Inside the war chariot, Xiao Chen closed his eyes and waited quietly. After a while, a bright light flickered, and the war chariot vanished with Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen was transported to the next relay station. After repeating this process more than 10 times, an extraordinarily bustling relay station appeared at the limits of his vision. This relay station was the size of most of Meteor Trail City. There were all sorts of buildings, restaurants, tea houses, inns, pharmacies, markets, and everything else. Of course, the large-scale transportation formation that Xiao Chen needed was there as well. The relay station was circular. No matter where one landed, there would be a large road that led directly to the large-scale transportation formation in the center. Compared to that large-scale relay station, the relay station under Xiao Chen's feet was like mud to clouds. The difference in nature was much smaller. In his line of sight, he could see many mighty warships and war chariots filled with Emperor's might speeding toward the large relay station from all directions. The Jadeite relay station is in front, one of the 10 great relay stations of the Kunlun realm. You can go to the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor through this place. The Phoenix's Passion Palace disciples beside the cycle war chariot cautiously urged Xiao Chen to get off. Chapter 1401. Jadeite Courier Station. Xiao Chen thought, could this have something to do with the Jadeite sovereign? That Jadeite sovereign's whereabouts were elusive. Xiao Chen had not been able to find him in the Kunlun realm. Most of the Emperor Wu and experts who liked to live in seclusion would choose to spend the rest of their lives in the Starry Sky Courier Station. Based on the Jade King's temperament, this was very likely. A flower planted intentionally does not blossom, but an unintentional tree planted inadvertently grows into a willow tree. What does the Jadeite relay station have to do with the Jadeite King? Xiao Chen asked casually from the war chariot. When the Phoenix's Passion Palace disciple heard the question, he did not dare to be slow. Aside from the saber stuck in the front of the black war chariot, which was somewhat strange, everything else about it was extremely ordinary. However, For some reason, when he stood beside the carriage, he felt an oppressive feeling, not daring to act presumptuously. Senior, I'm not sure about that. However, there is indeed an expert living in the Jadeite Pavilion at the Jadeite Relay Station. As for whether it's the Jade King or not, I don't know. The disciple of the Phoenix's Passion Palace said everything that she knew in detail. Xiao Chen was deep in thought. He was very close to his goal. Should he make a trip himself? The owner of the relay station lives in the Jadeite Pavilion in the Jadeite Lake. However, he does not like to be disturbed. Not long ago, there were a few greater celestial Emperor Wu from the Devil World who joined hands to cause trouble for them, but they were all thrown out. The Phoenix's Passion Palace disciple hesitated for a moment before continuing. Thanks a lot. In the war chariot, Xiao Chen politely said a few words before flying away. The Jadeite relay station looked very close, but when one actually arrived in the starry sky, one would realize that it was only on the surface. The true distance was probably no less than 10 million miles. It was just that the light was too bright, giving people an illusion. From time to time, large King-class warships and even Emperor-class warships would flash past Xiao Chen. In comparison, the cycle war chariot, which was deliberately concealed, was very unremarkable. Xiao Chen, who was in the chariot, casually looked around. He discovered that most of the people on this warship were bladesmen. They were probably going to the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor. Several young bladesmen were eager to give it a try, looking very spirited. Rumor had it that during this Saber Dao Tea Party, the Saber's sovereign Wu Xiaotian would personally choose a new generation of Saber sovereigns and personally guide them. The top 100 of the Saber school ranking could even go to the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor's famous Saber washing pool to retemper their beloved sabers. Compared to this huge warship, Xiao Chen's cycle war chariot looked very small. Half a day later, the chariot smoothly landed at the Jadeite relay station. After asking around, they headed towards the Jadeite Lake in the relay station. As for the bladesmen on the warships, they headed straight for the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor, preparing to teleport to the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor. The relay station was very big, comparable to Meteor Trail City. Although it was called a relay station, it was more accurate to call it a city. It was a city that was fixed in the starry sky. Along the way, there were many shops and cultivators everywhere. Even the weakest among them was a martial sage. With a casual glance, one could spot quite a number of Emperor Wu, and even greater Celestial Emperor Wu. Some were drinking and chatting, some were trading treasures, and some were discussing about exploring forbidden areas in the depths of the starry sky. The bustling scene was vividly displayed before his eyes. As expected of one of the 10 great starry sky relay stations. The Jadeite Lake sat at the northwest edge of the relay station. It was a green lake that looked like a mirror, calm and quiet, without any ripples. It looked like a piece of jadeite embedded in the ground, looking incredibly strange. There was a pavilion in the center of the lake. That was the Jadeite Pavilion, the place where the owner of the Starry Sky relay station stayed. It was like the owner knew that he did not like to be disturbed. The lakeside was quiet and peaceful, no one else could be seen. The cycle war chariot stopped by the lakeside. Xiao Chen thought about how to meet the owner of this relay station. I should be more direct. This person is most likely the Jadeite sovereign. Jadeite relay station, Jadeite Lake, and Jadeite Pavilion. If there was only one, it could be considered a coincidence. However, there were all three. Only a person who specialized in the Jadeite Dao would be interested in building so many things related to Jadeite. However, there seemed to be something wrong with this lake. It seemed like it was formed by the other party's domain or merged with the lake. Sir, are you the Dark Sea's sovereign martial emperor, the Jadeite sovereign? I came here on account of your fame. Would it be possible for me to meet you? Inside the war chariot, Xiao Chen projected his voice into the Jadeite Pavilion. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds passed. No one answered, no one cared. It was like there was no one in the pavilion. Many thanks for the Jadeite sovereign's tacit approval. I will be coming in. Xiao Chen did not care about anything else. The war chariot turned and entered the lake, heading for the jadeite pavilion. Interesting. Recently, there seem to be more and more people as bold as you. Laughter came from the pavilion in the center of the lake. Then, there was the sound of books being folded. The cycle war chariot had just entered the lake, and a layer of lake water quickly spread over it. Soon, the black war chariot turned jadeite green. Inside the war chariot, this green water also spread over Xiao Chen's feet. Then, they quickly crystallized, and he could no longer move his feet. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. He discovered that something was wrong. As the green water seeped in, his bones, muscles, blood, and entire body showed signs of crystallizing. Gurgle. Gurgle. The luxurious war chariot looked like it had completely turned jadeite as it slowly sank into the lake. Waves kicked up on the surface of the lake. In the next moment, the waves gathered and formed a scholarly, middle-aged man wearing jadeite silk and a white jade belt. The middle-aged man stepped forward and raised his hand. Then, he pulled out the cycle war chariot from the bottom of the lake. He casually patted it, and the war chariot turned into countless jadeite shards that filled the air, flickering with jadeite light. Everything shattered. Only the crystal man hovering in the air didn't shatter. He was sparkling and translucent, and his entire body was dark green. So, you are not a demon. Then, I'll send you off. The murderous intent in the middle-aged man's eyes weakened significantly. He raised his head and waved, wanting to toss the crystallized Xiao Chen out of the relay station. Ka! Just at this moment, the crystal covering Xiao Chen shattered, revealing his true appearance with a black mask. The crystal on the flying shards also peeled off at this moment. Boom! All the shards gathered and turned into a throne with 7 divine weapons stabbed into it. He nearly turned into jadeite. It looks like I did not find the wrong person. Aside from the jadeite sovereign, whose jadeite mysteries could be so incredible. Xiao Chen said calmly from the throne. His tone contained some joy. The jadeite sovereign's face turned somewhat grave. The lake water flowed under his feet. Unknowingly, he had increased the distance between him and Xiao Chen significantly. The jadeite sovereign felt a vast and boundless saber intent from Xiao Chen. That was a dangerous aura, so he needed to increase the distance between him and Xiao Chen. In this golden age, there are many new experts. You must be the shadowless saber sovereign that has caused a lot of commotion in the past few years, right? The jadeite sovereign asked. Xiao Chen nodded and said, you can say that. I don't think I have what you want. I am not a bladesman either. Why are you looking for me? The jadeite sovereign asked as he looked straight at Xiao Chen. Do you have a throne that contains the destruction Tao? After obtaining it, you will be able to comprehend the state of destruction without a teacher? Xiao Chen asked with some anticipation. The jadeite sovereign felt stunned when he heard that. Then, he smiled and said, what a coincidence. To think that people came to look for such an insignificant thing. Xiao Chen frowned and asked, what do you mean? Before you, several demon greater heavenly martial emperors came to look for me. Even before that, the cyclic astral lord came to ask as well. A light flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. To think that the cyclic astral lord came before as well. Could it be that he knows something? Never mind, I'll not care about this for now. Xiao Chen asked, is the throne still in your hands? Naturally, it is. Xiao Chen smiled and said, in that case, that's good. Just state your conditions. As long as it is within my means, I will definitely do it. The jadeite sovereign smiled and did not say anything. Or should I state my conditions, and you choose? Xiao Chen suggested unhurriedly. The jadeite sovereign smiled and said, do you think that your conditions are even more tempting than the cyclic astral lords? It seemed like this jadeite sovereign had no intention of making a move. Chapter 1402. Xiao Chen came to a realization. It seemed like he had been happy for nothing. The demon race's coercion and the astral lord's enticement had all failed to take the destruction throne from the jadeite sovereign's hands. How could Xiaochen take it away from the cyclic astral lord? It was as the Jadeite sovereign said. Could it be that the thing that Xiaochen took out was more attractive than the cyclic astral lords? As a retired king, he had no desires or desires. There were simply too few things that could move his heart. Seated on the throne, Xiaochen's expression did not change. However, he was still thinking about how to obtain the destruction throne. Of the 7 great thrones, there was only one left. No matter what, he had to obtain it. The Jadeite sovereign said indifferently, "Leave. To tell you the truth, I have already refined the destruction throne into this Jadeite pavilion. Furthermore, this Jadeite pavilion is not only connected to the relay station's transportation formation but also my Life Emperor Grade's secret treasure." Life Emperor Grade's secret treasures, in layman's terms, were Emperor Grade's secret treasures that had been used for a long time, becoming like one's own arm, inseparable. For example, Xiaochen's lunar shadow saber could be said to be his Life Emperor Grade's secret treasure. Xiaochen understood, just like how he would not hand the lunar shadow saber to others. Similarly, the Jadeite sovereign would not hand the Jadeite pavilion over to anyone else. "I'm forcing you. A gentleman does not take away someone else's love." Although Xiaochen was not a gentleman, he understood that this matter could not be forced. Jadeite sovereign smiled and said, "From the looks of it, you are going to participate in the Saber Dao Tea Party. I have seen many new saber users in the relay station over the years. Several of them are quite famous, displaying their sharpness without restraint. They even defeated some older generation bladesmen. However, compared to you, they seem somewhat lacking." Xiaochen smiled faintly to himself. He had seen some of the new generation bladesmen before. He knew what they lacked: accumulations. "I didn't expect you to have such a high opinion of me. Thank you, I'm leaving. If you have any thoughts of selling the destruction throne, please inform me immediately." As soon as Xiaochen finished speaking, the throne rapidly transformed, turning back into a war chariot. He was prepared to leave. The horse turned around and pulled the chariot, moving slowly. The Jadeite sovereign entered deep thought. This shadowless saber sovereign before him, aside from having an older heir, was very similar to a person he met many years ago. Suddenly, half of the surface of the lake was covered in blood, and it instantly spread to the feet of the Jadeite king. Xiao! A figure condensed in the blood and stabbed at Jadeite king with a sword. This sword was so fast that it could be said that it came without any warning. With a "poochie" sound, the Jade King's body was blasted into pieces by this sword strike, turning into fragments that fell into the lake. Inside the Jadeite pavilion, the Jadeite sovereign's true body vomited a mouthful of blood and frowned heavily. A blood demon sovereign martial emperor. The one who attacked was a blood demon sovereign martial emperor. This sovereign martial emperor instantly destroyed one of his clones. Furthermore, the sword chi even injured his main body. Yeah. A furious roar came from the sky as a metallic figure descended from the sky, punching out, causing space to tremble. Courting death. A furious roar came from the Jadeite pavilion. The Jadeite king appeared and landed on the surface of the lake. With a boom, the Jadeite pavilion was lifted up and touched the sky. The Jadeite king's metallic body crashed into the pavilion, and it tumbled down with a clang. After the Jadeite king climbed back up, he chuckled foolishly. This berserk strike did not seem to pose much of a problem to him. An iron demon sovereign martial emperor. Inside the war chariot, Xiaochen's face sank. 2 sovereign martial emperors came to kill 1 Jadeite sovereign. How extravagant! Jadeite sovereign, my race's demon monarch has cultivated the destruction Dao for many years and urgently needs the throne in your hand to make a breakthrough. If you're sensible enough to hand it over, you'll be rewarded. If you don't, you'll die sooner or later. If you do not, you will die sooner or later, the blood demon sovereign martial emperor said coldly as he held up his sword. The sovereign emperor's might unique to sovereign martial emperors spread out from his body and suppressed the unique Jadeite lake under him. Blood covered the surface of the lake, completely suppressing the Jadeite sovereign's domain. The Jadeite sovereign's expression turned somewhat grave. As a 7th Heaven Sovereign Martial Emperor, he did not fear an 8th Heaven Sovereign Martial Emperor in this Jadeite lake. However, the other party came prepared, directly sealing his Jadeite lake. Furthermore, they even invited an Iron Demon Sovereign Martial Emperor. This battle did not bode well for the Jadeite Sovereign. The Jadeite Sovereign glanced at the Shadowless Saber Sovereign, who was not far away. The Shadowless Saber Sovereign's Emperor's might was not dense, and his aura was not strong. The two Demon Sovereign Martial Emperors did not care about the Jadeite Sovereign at all, not even bothering to look at him. However, the Jadeite Sovereign knew that whether he could escape this calamity or not depended on whether this person would help or not. Would he help? The Jadeite Sovereign felt that it was impossible. The other party wanted the destruction thrones so much. This was a rare opportunity. Naturally, the best way was to wait for the demons and the Jadeite Sovereign to injure each other before reaping the benefits. Ding dang. Ding dang. Suddenly, the sound of wind chimes rang out in the battlefield. A saber light descended from the sky. Pride stabbed into the lake with an unparalleled sharpness. Cassier. 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 A peerless saber chi spread out. Instantly, cracks appeared on the blood covering the lake. Not only did Xiaochen help, but he also did not hesitate at all, moving decisively and quickly. A good opportunity. The Jadeite Sovereign's eyes lit up. Holding the miniature Jadeite pavilion in his left hand, he pointed with his right hand. The surface of the lake exploded, sending all the blood flying. Ignorant Junior. Kill him. The Blood Demon Sovereign Martial Emperor raged. When the Iron Demon Sovereign Martial Emperor heard this, he quickly rushed towards the chariot while stepping on the water. As he ran, he appeared slow but was actually very fast. His entire body shone with light, making him look like an iron statue. Be careful. This is a deep abyss Iron Demon Sovereign Martial Emperor. The Jadeite Sovereign shouted a warning to the Shadowless Saber Sovereign, fearing that the Shadowless Saber Sovereign would get careless and end up at a disadvantage. The Blood Demon Sovereign Martial Emperor smiled coldly and said, "No matter how anxious you are, it is useless. It is very difficult for the Iron Demon race to produce a Sovereign Martial Emperor. However, once one becomes a Sovereign Martial Emperor, even a divine weapon will not be able to injure him." Bang! Before the Blood Demon Sovereign Martial Emperor finished speaking, there was a loud sound. The Iron Demon Sovereign Martial Emperor, who was running out, landed heavily. 6 bloody holes appeared on his chest. Saber intent lingered there, and blood flowed continuously. The Blood Demon Sovereign Martial Emperor turned his head back and saw starlight falling from a black throne. Xiaochen sat there quietly. The 7 divine weapons floated around him, radiating saber intent. Shadowless Saber Sovereign. Xiaochen said softly, "I am honored that a Sovereign Martial Emperor of the Deep Abyss demonic world also knows of my existence. Don't move." Xiaochen spoke halfway before changing the topic. The 7 divine weapons turned into 7 beams of light, disappearing in a flash. The Iron Demon Sovereign Martial Emperor, who had just stood up and wanted to charge over, was knocked back again. This time, the wound was even deeper, and even more blood flowed out. Heaven was fair, giving the Iron Demons an absolutely strong physical body. However, it also deprived them of something else, intelligence. If this Iron Demon had Xiaochen's intelligence and was not so straightforward and nimble, Xiaochen would have trouble dealing with him. However, Xiaochen did not mind stabbing him a few more times. Cannot injure him. With the 7 divine weapons drawn, there was nothing that could not injure him. As Xiaochen sat on the throne, he looked like the sovereign of the saber. Let's go. The Blood Demon Sovereign Martial Emperor knew that he could not gain an advantage. He pulled the Iron Demon Sovereign Martial Emperor up, turned into a beam of scarlet light, and soared into the sky. Seeing the two leave, Xiaochen and the Jadeite Sovereign did not give chase. The other party was not severely injured. If they gave chase forcefully, they would not gain any advantage. If the Jadeite sovereign left this Jadeite lake, his combat prowess would decrease significantly. If they really fought, both sides would end up severely injured. Many thanks for saving my life, Your Excellency. The Jadeite sovereign said sincerely as he flew over while holding the Jadeite pavilion. The Jadeite sovereign appeared somewhat fatigued, and his complexion paled slightly. It looked like the blood demon sovereign martial emperor's sword strike was not easy to take. Shao Qin said calmly, "You are too polite. It was just a slight effort." The Jadeite sovereign sighed and said, "Unexpectedly, this blood demon monarch is so persistent. For the sake of this destruction throne, he is even willing to send out a sovereign martial emperor. Why not leave this starry heaven relay station and go to the Kunlun continent? The demon sovereign martial emperors would not dare to be so arrogant there." The Jadeite sovereign shook his head and said, "I've lived in this starry heaven relay station for several hundred years already. I'm already used to everything here. I have an idea. If you are willing to endure the rage of the blood demon monarch, I can give you the destruction throne." The Jadeite sovereign did not care about the greater heavenly emperor Wu's demons. However, if a sovereign martial emperor attacked, he would be in trouble. This time, the Jadeite sovereign had helped to block the trouble. However, what about the next time, and the time after that? The Jadeite sovereign had lived in seclusion for several hundred years and had long since grown tired of fighting and killing. He just wanted to spend the rest of his life in peace, not getting embroiled in conflict. Shao Qin felt slightly stunned. This was truly a strange turn of events. Who could have imagined that the Jadeite sovereign would personally give the destruction throne to him? Chapter 1403. Shao Qin remained silent for 3 seconds before asking, "Have you thought it through?" The Jadeite sovereign smiled and said, "I should be the one asking you that. The blood demon monarch is not someone who gives up easily. Of the 18 demon monarchs, the top 9 are all primes. The blood demon monarch is ranked 8th, so he is known as the 8th demon monarch. Right now, the destruction throne was already a problem. Due to the cyclic astral lord's status, he could not make a move on it. However, the blood demon monarch did not need to worry. This time, he could send 2 7th heaven sovereign martial emperors. Next time, he might come personally. Right now, the blood demon monarch was tossing the problem to Shao Qin. This was not a good thing. Hence, Shao Qin needed to consider this carefully. "I'm not afraid. The destruction throne is very important to me. Now that an opportunity is delivered to me, no matter how troublesome it is, I have to accept it," Shao Qin said with certainty while seated on the throne. The Jadeite sovereign relaxed and said, "Good. In that case, wait for me for 3 days. 3 days later, I will separate the destruction throne from the Jadeite pavilion." Shao Qin silently calculated the time. The Saber Dao tea party was set for 4 days from now. 3 days was sufficient. The Jadeite sovereign waved his hand, and 2 servants descended after a while. "Pass down my orders. The Jadeite relay station needs to rest for 3 days. During these 3 days, no one is allowed to remain in the Jadeite relay station." Understood. The 2 old servants did not say anything more. They immediately stood up and left to pass down the Jadeite sovereign's orders. Shao Qin felt slightly startled. Unexpectedly, the implications were so great. He did not know what kind of waves it would cause by chasing away the guests. Seeing Shao Qian's somewhat doubtful expression, the Jadeite sovereign explained, "I did not lie to you earlier. This Jadeite pavilion is indeed connected to the formation of the entire relay station. During the separation, there will be a rather large commotion, so we need to chase away the others." Shao Qin nodded to indicate that he understood. He could afford to wait 3 days. The throne turned illusory, turning into a war chariot. Then, Shao Qin closed his eyes and cultivated. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. While Shao Qin was rather idle, the cultivators in the Starry Heaven relay station complained. This was especially so for the bladesmen preparing to use the transportation formation at the Jadeite relay station to head to the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor. Since the transportation formation here could not be used, Xiaoqun would have to take a big detour and use another relay station before he could reach the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor, wasting time and energy. The two old servants tried to appease him for a long time, promising to compensate him for the carriage fees. Only then did they finally settle the matter. After the troublesome bladesman left, the other merchants and cultivators were easier to deal with. These people did not have urgent matters to attend to, and they all had some sort of friendship with the Jadeite sovereign. It was only after everyone had left that the Jadeite king officially began his separation. Extracting the destruction throne from the Jadeite pavilion was not difficult. What was difficult was the heart. Before Xiaoqun advanced to martial emperor, this Jadeite pavilion was already his weapon. Hundreds of years of affection were not something that could be easily severed. Staring at the Jadeite pavilion in his hand, the Jadeite sovereign did not speak for a long time. Back then, he was also in high spirits, wanting to compete with the various geniuses. Every cultivator had their pride in their hearts. Naturally, the Jadeite sovereign was no exception. If not for the Jadeite sovereign's lover dying in a vendetta back then, perhaps the Kunlun realm would have had another prime. Can't bear to part with it? Inside the carriage, Xiaoqun opened his eyes at some point in time. Back then, she refined this Jadeite pavilion with me. I also obtained the destruction throne while adventuring outside with her. The Jadeite sovereign revealed an expression of reminiscence in his eyes. There was joy, happiness, and even more sorrow. Feeling excited, Xiaoqun recalled some of the past between him and the lunar shadow saber, as well as the person he loved hidden in the depths of his memories. It looks like you are someone with a story as well. Shadowless Saber Sovereign, you appeared 3 years ago during the Golden Age. I never believed that there was a person with such skills with the saber. You should be someone I met before, the Jadeite sovereign said when he saw that Xiaoqun, who was in the carriage, suddenly stopped speaking. It is not important whether I met him or not. Everyone in this world has their own story. Everyone is unique, just like you, me, and everyone else. It doesn't matter whether I've seen it or not. Everyone in this world has their own story. Everyone is unique, just like you, me, and everyone else. It is not important whether I met him or not. Everyone in this world has their own story. Everyone is unique, just like you, me, and everyone else. A flash of jadeite light came from the Jadeite sovereign's hand. A bright light shone everywhere, and the exquisite jadeite pavilion started to disintegrate bit by bit. Rumble. The disintegrating motes of light fell like rain. As the motes fell, they gave off a jadeite light. The jadeite rain, the black cycle war chariot, and the Jadeite sovereign, who held the Jadeite pavilion and recalled the past, formed a beautiful scene in this Jadeite lake. Soon, 2 days went by. The Jadeite rain still showed no signs of stopping. At the same time, all the famous bladesmen of the entire Golden Age in the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor rushed over. Strictly speaking, the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor was also a Starry Heavens relay station. However, it was a private place and normally not open to the public. It was the property of the Saber sovereign Wu Xiaotian's clan. This was especially so for the saber washing pool in the mountain manor. Rumor had it that even the most ordinary sharp blade could become a famous saber after being washed there. It was extremely mysterious. The entire Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor was several times larger than the Jadeite relay station. It was like a huge city in the starry heavens. Hundreds of astral arenas that were modified from relay stations surrounded the mountain manor. Even if it was a battle on the level of Emperor Wu, these arenas could withstand it. Inside the mountain manor, when Xiren checked the name list, drawing out the names, all the bladesmen who came would have a clear mark on them. There were only 2 days left until the official start of the Saber Dao Tea Party. Most of the guests who were supposed to come had already arrived. The new 10 great bladesmen of the Kunlun realm's 5 great races in the Golden Age were all here. These 10 people had all risen to prominence in the Golden Age. They were not more than 100 years old. At the very least, they were 4th Heaven Emperor Wu. Compared to Emperor Wu's 2,000-year-old lifespan, these people could be considered in their golden ages. They were all here for the title of the new saber sovereign. No one was willing to submit to anyone else. For example, the ghost race's Xiao Feng, who merged the ghost Dao with the saber Dao. As a fourth heaven emperor Wu, he used the ghostly saber technique to kill a sixth heaven martial emperor. There was also the corpse race's Xing Kong, an outstanding bladesman of the Xingtian clan. His saber techniques were large and bold, known as the strongest in the firm and ferocious side. There was also the Tianwu domain's Feng Xingsheng. He became famous at a young age. Now, he was second only to Bai Wuxue in the Water Moon Alliance, known as the top bladesman of the Tianwu domain. Aside from these new 10 great bladesmen, there were also many low-profile bladesmen with mysterious movements. The Shadowless Saber Sovereign was one of them. However, most of these low-profile and strong bladesmen were here as well. Only the Shadowless Saber Sovereign was nowhere to be seen. When Xiren frowned slightly and said, "There are still 2 more days before the start of the first Saber Dao Tea Party. Could it be that he is not coming?" For the first Saber Dao Tea Party of the Golden Age, most people would rush over at least a week in advance. The reason was none other than the bustling scene in the astral arenas over the past 2 days. They were all here for the title of the new Saber Sovereign. Of course, they had to get a feel of each other in advance. Never mind. If he is not coming, so be it, When Xiren said somewhat disappointedly. He had come to check out this list for the Shadowless Saber Sovereign. In reality, When Xiren really misunderstood Xiao Chen. If not for the matter of the Destruction Throne, Xiao Chen would definitely rush over in advance. 3 days later, at the Jadeite relay station, the Jadeite sovereign finally separated the Destruction Throne and erased his spiritual mark. As Xiao Chen looked at the Destruction Throne in his palm, he revealed a rare smile. He finally gathered all 7 thrones today. Considering the time, it had been a long time since he obtained the Massacre Throne in the Sky Dome realm. Back then, martial sages were godlike existences to Xiao Chen. Now, he did not even fear 7th Heaven Sovereign Martial Emperors. After putting away the Destruction Throne, Xiao Chen said, "Many thanks. I owe you a favor. I'll go and participate in the Saber Dao Tea Party first." There was only 1 day left. If Xiao Chen did not go now, he would not make it in time. Going from my place? I'm afraid I can't go. The Jadeite Pavilion needs to be refined again before the transportation formation can recover, the Jadeite sovereign said somewhat helplessly. Inside the Cycle War Chariot, Xiao Chen felt startled. What should I do? I can't go. Chapter 1404. The transportation formation at the Jadeite relay station is unusable? Xiao Chen reacted after being stunned for a while. He had not thought about this problem before. Why did you not say so earlier? If Xiao Chen had said so earlier, he would not have had to think of a countermeasure now that the Saber Dao Tea Party had only 1 day. Xiao Chen never liked to break his promise. Either he did not agree, but since he promised Wen Xiren, he had to go. Now that the transportation formation was unusable, how was he to reach the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor in 1 day? The Jadeite sovereign smiled helplessly and said, "I said from the start that the Jadeite Pavilion is connected to this relay station. Otherwise, what would I do with the other cultivators? If there were no interference, why would I need to make such a big fuss about it? I thought you already knew." Damn it! The Jadeite sovereign really did say that. However, I was too preoccupied with the Destruction Throne and completely forgot about it. What should I do now? Xiao Chen could not help feeling at a loss. Jadeite sovereign, how long will it take to get to the relay stations that can reach the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor from here? It'll take at least 2 days. 2 days was not enough. By the time Xiao Chen rushed over, the Saber Dao Tea Party would be over. Inside the war chariot, Xiao Chen frowned heavily as he pondered a countermeasure. How long will it take to get to the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor from here? The Jadeite sovereign thought for a while before answering, "It will take about 1.5 days. Of course, this is a straight line. While flying in the starry heavens, one might run into meteors, groups of meteors, or even a starry heavens storm. In reality, no one would do that. There were too many accidents and risks traveling alone in the starry heavens for a long time. Earlier, the Jadeite sovereign had not mentioned that if he got careless and ran into an astral beast, it would be even more problematic. 1.5 days is enough. A brilliant light flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. This was the only way. He had to rush over in 1 day. Jadeite sovereign, we will meet again. The destruction throne is very useful to me. I cannot thank you enough. Let's go. Right after the Jadeite sovereign spoke, the cycle war chariot turned into a beam of black light and soared into the sky, vanishing from the Jadeite sovereign's sight. The Jadeite sovereign looked up and felt somewhat surprised. That is too risky. Is the Saber Dao Tea Party that attractive? After retiring for several hundred years, the Jadeite sovereign had become indifferent to all sorts of gatherings. In reality, it was not a matter of attraction. Rather, since Xiao Chen had promised Wen Ziren, he had to keep the appointment. He didn't want to be a person who went back on his word. The Black War Chariot left a straight trail of light in the vast starry heavens. The two mutated flood dragons spat out dragon breath, burning any meteors in their way to ashes. While traveling at full speed, Xiao Chen would also personally take action to shatter the incoming meteors. The wheels of the war chariot rotated rapidly, as if they were about to burst into flames. However, this was not enough. The vast starry heavens were boundless. Amid the many resplendent stars, the heavenly Saber Mountain Manor's silhouette could not be seen. Inside the war chariot, Xiao Chen's face suddenly sank. There was a group of meteors about 50 kilometers in front, heading in his direction, howling. This group of meteors was huge and densely packed together. If one wanted to avoid them, one would have to make a huge detour. Sharp spirit finger. A corner of the curtains in front of the war chariot parted. A resplendent purple light turned into a pillar of light and shot out. Soundless explosions rang out one after another. Wherever the light passed, it forcefully opened a path in the group of meteors. When the curtains fell back, the Black War Chariot passed through in an instant. It was a daunting experience without any mishaps. Xiao Chen opened the star chart and found the location of the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor. He frowned slightly as he thought about how to reach the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor. As Xiao Chen quickly traveled through the starry heavens, the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor welcomed its most bustling moment. The tea party was about to start. There was a plaza with ancient sculptures in the center of the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor. This plaza was circular and made up of more than 1,000 stone pillars. The stone pillars formed a circle. The further one went, the fewer the stone pillars. In the innermost circle of stone pillars, there were only 36 stone pillars surrounding a unique black stone pillar. The ancient stone pillars looked very old. Each stone pillar had an ancient bladesman carved on it. During the previous tea party, Heavenly Cauldron City's ancient sculptures were temporarily borrowed from this place. Each stone pillar represented a location for the Tao discussion. It was clear that the further one went, the closer one was to the core. Anyone with a bit of strength would not be willing to sit in the outermost circle and watch others talk loudly and cheerfully. The many invited bladesmen and cultivators who enjoyed watching the excitement had already arrived outside the central plaza. A vast aura came from the stone pillars in the distance. The wills of the many bladesmen of the past had gathered. They were like the sea, surging endlessly. However, they were as stable as a mountain, gathering wind and clouds in the surroundings without moving. These must be the famous stone statues of the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor, right? How majestic! I heard that the wills of the bladesmen in the stone statues have not scattered even after more than 100,000 years. Is that true? Of course, it is true. During the previous tea party, the Blue Dragon King Xiao Chen discussed the Tao over tea, allowing the will of the ancient saber Tao to reappear. Comparing the present to the past, it was a wondrous sight. How unfortunate for the Blue Dragon King. If he were here, this tea party would be even more exciting. Ha! Now is the golden age, the age of heroes competing. The era of the Blue Dragon King Xiao Chen is long gone. What is there to pity about? That's right. Now, the 10 great bladesmen of the new generation are no weaker than the Blue Dragon King back then. In fact, they might even surpass him. The ghostly bladesman is going up. Suddenly, a figure soared up like a dragon, charging into the clouds like a sharp saber. The sound of a berserk saber howling came from this figure, causing wind and thunder to roar endlessly. Let's go. Immediately, the many bladesmen who were invited or took the initiative to rush over could no longer hold themselves back. They soared into the air, wanting to fight for a spot for themselves. Immediately, everyone became like a saber, showing their sharpness without hiding it at all. The various bladesmen competed with each other. Saber lights filled the air, reflecting off each other. For the sake of a stone pillar, many bladesmen fought in the air above the central plaza. The boundless berserk clouds churned. The new generation of bladesmen in this golden age were all extraordinary. When Ziren saw this scene, he revealed a satisfied expression. He was a person who liked a lively scene. Otherwise, he would not have lowered himself and gone around inviting bladesmen for a tea party. Ziren was a person who truly loved the saber. He also hoped that this tea party would be better. At this moment, the thunderclouds for 5,000 kilometers churned. Saber lights filled the air, flickering and dazzling. The various bladesmen competed with each other. This was the scene that Ziren loved. However, Ziren suddenly thought of an old friend, and the smile on his face faded. If that old friend were still around, this tea party would be even more lively. However, was that old friend still around? Whoosh! Suddenly, a resplendent saber light lit up on the innermost 36 stone pillars in the central plaza. The saber light coalesced, and an ancient bladesman stood upright while holding his saber. Ziren stopped thinking and looked up. Then, he said softly, "So, it is the ghostly bladesman, Xiao Feng." He managed to snatch the top spot. Not only that, but he also activated the bladesman's will in the stone pillar, attracting everyone's attention. Shocked cries rang out endlessly in the various cultivators' ears. This was the first time they saw such a miraculous scene, so they all praised it profusely. If it were in the past, Ziren would definitely be shocked. However, in the previous tea party, that old friend had activated the will of the ancient sages as a martial sage. Right now, most of the bladesmen in this golden age were as strong as Emperor Wu. At the very least, they were as strong as the blue-robed emperor. With such strength, activating the will of the ancient sages was not too surprising. As the ghostly bladesman, Xiao Feng, landed first, the various new generation saber sovereigns took their places. The wills of the ancient bladesmen were activated one after another. The light of the ancient sages blossomed, scattering the clouds and chasing away the sunlight. Only countless starlight descended. The stars looked like lanterns adorning the sky of the plaza. It looked like one could extinguish the lanterns just by stretching out one's hand. The 1,000 stone pillars were filled with guests. Ziren knew that it was time for him to go up and host the tea party. Ziren gently pushed off the ground and withdrew his sharpness, walking in the air step by step. Everywhere Ziren passed, the many cultivators greeted him. This saber sovereign's descendant was already famous long ago. His strength was outstanding. Even if he did not reveal any sharpness, no one would dare to underestimate him. Ziren walked over step by step. Aside from the black stone pillar in the center, there was an empty spot among the 36 stone pillars in the innermost area. This was not a coincidence. Everyone knew that this spot belonged to Ziren. No one would snatch it from him, nor would anyone dare to. After Ziren sat down, a light immediately lit up the stone pillar. The light gathered and turned into an ancient sage. With the appearance of this sage, the night sky filled with stars. The starry heavens lit up. "Brother Wen, didn't you say that the shadowless saber sovereign would come to this tea party as well? How come I don't see him?" The one who spoke was the corpse race bladesman Xing Feng. This person had always been arrogant and fearless, speaking his mind directly. This question was also on the minds of the others. However, due to Wen's Ziren, they could not ask it in front of everyone. The shadowless saber sovereign did not touch the saber or leave a shadow behind. He was very famous. However, he kept a low profile and rarely appeared in public. Many of the bladesmen were already unconvinced by this. Bladesmen all had their pride. If one had not truly defeated the shadowless saber sovereign once, no matter what one thought of his reputation, one would not be convinced. I have long heard of the great name of the shadowless saber sovereign and really wanted to see for myself whether he lived up to his reputation or not. How unfortunate. Ha! He is someone who does not even dare to get off the war chariot. He must be pretending to be mysterious. How strong can he be? With Xing Feng taking the lead, the topic of discussion immediately shifted to the shadowless saber sovereign. This made Wen Ziren somewhat embarrassed, not knowing how to reply. After all, he had said earlier that the shadowless saber sovereign would definitely come. Now that the shadowless saber sovereign had not arrived, it would be hard to avoid blame. At the same time, the shadowless saber sovereign that everyone was talking about finally saw the vague silhouette of the heavenly saber mountain manor after frantically rushing for an entire day. He only saw the silhouette. If he really wanted to rush over, he would still need half a day. After a day of high-intensity rushing, Xiaochen felt mentally fatigued. He already used his fastest speed, but the environment of the starry heavens was too complicated. He was still too late. Looking in the direction of the heavenly saber mountain manor, Xiaochen showed a sullen expression. Am I going to be late? Definitely not. Since Xiaochen promised Wen Ziren that he would come, he had to be on time. Inside the war chariot, a brilliant light flashed in Xiaochen's eyes. Suddenly, Xiaochen unleashed his saber intent. Thousands of saber lights bloomed from his body, piercing through the curtains. This caused the black cycle war chariot to give off an even more resplendent light than the stars in the starry heavens. The thousands of saber lights suddenly gathered into one and landed on Pride, which was on the war chariot. Immediately, the saber gave off a piercing and dazzling light. Saber intent spread out and kicked up a boundless strong wind. Buzz! Pride shot out with a clang, tearing through space and carrying all of Xiaochen's saber intent with it, disappearing into the stars. In the central plaza of the heavenly saber mountain manor, Wen Ziren, who was on the stone pillar, smiled bitterly at everyone's censure and said, I'm really sorry. The shadowless saber sovereign might not be able to come, however, before Wen Ziren could finish speaking, something strange happened in the plaza. The sun suddenly appeared in the starry sky, blocking out all the starlight. The appearance of this blazing sun was too sudden. No one was prepared for it. Their eyes were temporarily dazzled, and they felt shocked in their hearts. Before they could ask any questions, they saw the sun descend. Buzz! It landed on the unique black stone pillar in the center of the Sage Plaza. What's going on? Did the sun fall? A strong wind blew, messing up everyone's hair. They found it hard to keep their eyes open. At this moment, the light and shadow of the predecessors shattered. The bladesman statues on the stone pillars fell off one after another, falling continuously. When the strong wind subsided and the light stopped flashing, everyone's eyes recovered. When they squinted, they discovered that a saber had appeared on the black stone pillar. It is not the sun that fell. It is a saber. Chapter 1405. What fell from the sky was not a blazing sun or a star. Instead, it was a saber. Everyone here used the saber. In the end, they were all frightened by a saber. Before this tea party even started, it was already a huge slap to the faces of these bladesmen. Whoosh! 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 What was even more horrifying was that this descending saber shattered the will of the bladesmen in the statues of the predecessors on the stone pillars. In mere moments, the 1,000-odd stone pillars became smooth. The night sky turned upside down, and the strange scene of the stars shining like lamps vanished at the same time. Sunlight shone, and the blazing sun reappeared, shining down fiercely. However, the bladesmen present could not warm up. Their hearts were as cold as water, and they broke out in a cold sweat. Some of the bladesmen in the outermost region even trembled, not daring to believe that there was such a strong saber in the world. In a quiet study in the mountain manor, Wu Xiaotian's heart trembled ferociously. He put down the ancient book in his hand and raised his head to look at the unknown starry heavens. 1 kilometer, 10 kilometers, 100 kilometers, 1 million meters, he finally saw it after 10 million meters. A black war chariot rushed over wildly in that boundless resplendent starry heavens. In the dark night, in the starry heavens, in this boundless universe, this black war chariot seemed very ordinary. However, in Wu Xiaotian's eyes, that was not a war chariot or a person. Instead, it was a saber tearing through the sky. It was not flying towards the heavenly saber inn or the 1,000-odd bladesmen in the central plaza. Instead, it was flying towards him, the saber sovereign Wu Xiaotian. Crack! Wu Xiaotian could not suppress the surging emotions in his heart. The ancient book in his hand shattered, turning into shards that danced wildly in the study. Sunlight shone in through the window, and the shards of paper fell like snow. At some point in time, Wu Xiaotian's black hair had turned snow-white. He looked like he had aged several hundred years. He knew that from the moment he saw that person, he was no longer the saber sovereign. Although the other party's cultivation was not as high as his accomplishments in the saber Dao already surpassed his. The instant Wu Xiaotian looked back, the white snow dyed his black hair. All his feelings flowed like water, and his fame drifted with the clouds. The generation's saber sovereign Wu Xiaotian was able to pick and drop things without any reluctance or resentment. After not seeing you for 5 years, you have indeed taken a different path. At least I did not risk my life to fight for you back then in vain. Wu Xiaotian smiled in frustration and sat back down, not saying anything more. Even the other primes would not be able to see through Xiao Chen's disguise. However, as the saber sovereign, no matter how Xiao Chen disguised himself, Wu Xiaotian would be able to recognize him at first glance. The saber sovereign recognized the person, not the face or the saber. He only recognized the heart of a bladesman. Wu Xiaotian could let it go and accept it. However, the many new generation bladesmen on the stone pillars in the central plaza were all very proud. How could they be convinced? Brother Wen, what's going on? Whose saber is it? Looking at the flickering saber blade, many people calmed down and asked Wen Ziren about it. Some of the bladesmen present felt suspicious. A small portion of them had seen this saber before and recognized it. However, they could not be sure. When Ziren had seen this saber before and had a deep impression of it. He recognized it at first glance. At first, he was shocked. Then, he was pleasantly surprised. In the end, the shadowless saber sovereign did not break his promise. However, when Ziren saw the expressions of the bladesmen present, he felt bitter in his heart. This shadowless saber sovereign had gone overboard. Ziren had to answer the questions of the many bladesmen. After a long silence, he whispered, "It's the shadowless saber sovereign saber. It really is him. I guessed it. This is his pride saber. I saw it once before. What an imposing manner. If you want to come, then come. If you don't, then don't. What is the meaning of this? He is completely looking down on us." The bladesmen on the stone pillars buzzed and immediately exploded. The dissatisfaction in their words was very clear. However, this was normal. Anyone sitting on a stone pillar would feel uncomfortable. This was not the way to slap someone's face. Even the will of the predecessors scattered, even slapping the ancestor's face. In reality, this was a huge misunderstanding. Xiao Chen only wanted to be on time. It had been many years since Xiao Chen had focused all his saber intent on one saber. This was the only way he could think of to be on time. The saber of a bladesman could represent the bladesman himself. No matter how one looked at it, using the saber to attend the meeting was reasonable. Scattering the will of the predecessors was not Xiao Chen's original intention. If he had not focused all his saber intent, pride would not have been able to land from such a distance. This startling change set the entire place abuzz. No one had expected such a thing to happen at the tea party. When Xiren felt somewhat helpless. After he waved his hand to stop the commotion, he said, "Quiet down." The Shadowless Saber Sovereign personally delivered an invitation. Using the saber to attend the meeting is not considered breaking the appointment. There is no need to argue about this. If anyone is not convinced, just go to the Dao discussion platform and chop off his saber. The black stone pillar was the Dao discussion platform of this tea party. As long as one occupied it, one would have to accept the challenges of others. This was the reason why no one had occupied this black stone pillar. Shadowless Saber Sovereign, do you have any objections? When Xiren asked as he looked at Pride's saber on the stone pillar. It is meaningless. Whoosh! Dust gathered on the stone pillar and turned into the figure of an ordinary person. Then, he stretched out his hand and drew Pride's saber. Xiao Chen, who was in the war chariot, burned most of his magic energy and finally executed the life bestowal spell from several million kilometers away. Such a scene stunned the others. Why did there suddenly appear another clone? I ran into some trifling matters along the way, so my true body could not attend the meeting on time. I could only use the saber to attend the meeting and execute some unorthodox Dao techniques, materializing half a clone to discuss the Dao. I apologize for any disrespect. The clone held the saber and performed a cupped fist salute in all directions. Some people scoffed, saying that the Shadowless Saber Sovereign was hypocritical. Some nodded to themselves. This Shadowless Saber Sovereign was rather humble. Are you really the Shadowless Saber Sovereign? A person from the innermost 36 stone pillars asked in an overbearing manner as he stood up. His eyes blazed with fighting spirit. I am the real deal. The saber in my hand can prove it. Very well. In that case, Su Xilan will come and test you out today. Right after Su Xilan spoke, he did not hesitate to charge at the clone that Xiao Chen formed with the life bestowal spell. Everyone immediately held their breaths and focused, no longer saying anything as they watched seriously. Although Su Xilan was not one of the new generation 10 great bladesmen, he was not far from it. Being able to gain a spot on one of the innermost 36 stone pillars was already very incredible in itself. The two figures quickly started fighting. Light and shadow flickered as Xiao Chen moved about. Su Xilan was famous for his fast saber. Xiao Chen noticed this characteristic and used speed to fight speed. The fish dragon art moved around the narrow stone pillar, showing thousands of changes. After 10 moves, the two figures separated. Su Xilan's complexion was pale, and a saber rested on his neck, preventing him from moving. I lost. Although it was said to be 10 moves, the two fought speed with speed. The 10 moves took only one breath of time. Some bladesmen did not even understand how Su Xilan lost. Only the true experts could see that Su Xilan lost miserably, losing in all 10 moves. Every time he attacked, a wound appeared on his body. After 10 moves, he could not even defend his vital points. In the future, Su Xilan would no longer dare to call himself a fast saber. Thanks for letting me win. You are already fast enough, but you lack a movement technique. A movement technique does not have to be a peak one. It has to be suitable for oneself, as everyone's body is different. When one's cultivation is low, there is no need to mind. However, when one's cultivation is high, one needs to find a movement technique that is suitable for one's body. If one cannot find one, one can modify it or create one. Xiao Chen said with a cupped fist salute. Su Xilan entered deep thought. Some of his questions seemed to have been answered. After a while, he performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Many thanks." Immediately, the place turned even quieter. Everyone felt that this person was not on the same level as the Shadowless Saber Sovereign. Although this person's aura clearly did not surpass that of a sovereign martial emperor, and his emperor's might did not have the unique air of a sovereign martial emperor, they had this feeling. In terms of the saber Dao, this person was on a completely different level from the shadowless saber sovereign. I'll do it. After some silence, the ghostly saber sovereign Zhao Feng stood up and made this difficult decision. Count me, Xing Feng, in. Xing Feng, who used the topic of the shadowless saber sovereign to make things difficult for Wen Ziren, also stepped forward at this moment. However, the arrogance in Xing Feng's eyes had already vanished, replaced by a grave expression. Two new generation saber sovereigns making a move at the same time seemed somewhat against the rules. However, no one felt that there was anything wrong with it. This was because the person they were going to fight was the shadowless saber sovereign. Chapter 1406. The ghostly blades man, Zhao Feng, made the first move. Without saying anything else, he immediately used his best move, Unparalleled Divine Ghost. The ghost race cultivators were good at cultivating death energy and controlling the souls of the dead. Zhao Feng was one of the best. However, he was different from the others. He had creatively merged the Ghost Dao and the Saber Dao, becoming a peak outstanding talent of the new generation bladesmen. Zhao Feng's cultivation was not low either. Once he executed Unparalleled Divine Ghost, it materialized a horrifying mysterious phenomenon. Half of Zhao Feng's slender body turned into a malicious spirit, and the other half into a legendary ghost of hell. Then, he chopped out with his saber. Two different kinds of flames intertwined, instantly dyeing the sky pitch black. His appearance was horrifying, and his face was especially horrifying, inspiring great fear in everyone. Behind him, images of hells appeared one after another, causing his aura of a ghostly god to skyrocket. Unparalleled Divine Ghost. I heard that Zhao Feng once used this move to instantly kill a 6th heaven martial Emperor Wu. When this move is used, it really feels like a ghost of hell coming out with a saber strike. Aside from the startling baleful aura, it is more of a psychological shock. After all, no one is truly unafraid of death. I wonder how the shadowless saber sovereign will deal with this. Just this clone alone will not be enough. As the discussions continued, the many bladesmen gave Zhao Feng's unparalleled divine ghost a very high evaluation. At the same time, the corpse race bladesman Xing Feng also drew his saber at this moment. Clang! A resonant saber hum came from Xing Feng's saber. The long and narrow saber flickered with a resplendent light, looking piercing and dazzling. Compared to Zhao Feng's complicated saber techniques, which required more attention to technique, Xing Feng's saber techniques were much simpler. There were no startling mysterious phenomena or magnificent saber moves. There was only an explosive and ferocious saber intent and extremely pure energy. Therefore, the moment he drew the saber out of the scabbard, a strong gust of wind swept the place, causing everyone to feel a faint pressure. Heartbreaking chop. Xing Feng leaped into the air and chopped down with his saber. Boom! The mysterious phenomenon of an exploding star appeared behind him. It was as if that was the result of his attack on Xing Chen. It was said that in the ancient era, there was a bladesman whose cultivation had reached the 9th heaven, Emperor Wu, who could shatter a small star with one saber strike. Xiao Chen had left behind the exceptional saber technique, the heartbreaking chop. Xing Feng had obtained the heartbreaking chop while adventuring in an ancient remnant. Although Xiao Chen did not cultivate it to the limits, only barely reaching the rudimentary level, his aura and might were clearly no weaker than that of an ancient bladesman. Zhao Feng and Xing Feng, one of the 10 great bladesmen of the new generation, attacked at nearly the same time. One side was peerless, and the other could shatter stars. Two great killing moves attacking at the same time. Could the shadowless saber sovereign block? How am I supposed to block this? If it were me, I would have a hard time blocking this move. I could only dodge, but after dodging, I would be in a passive position. These two are truly worthy of being the top bladesman of the ghost race and the top bladesman of the corpse race. Even some of the older generation bladesmen have higher cultivations than them. Looks like this clone is about to explode. Seeing Zhao Feng and Xing Feng make their moves, everyone broke into a cold sweat for the shadowless saber sovereign's clone. While on the stone pillar, Xiao Chen's thoughts raced. Be it Zhao Feng's killing moves or Xing Feng's, he had discovered many openings. No matter which one attacked, Xiao Chen could rely on his absolute advantage in the saber Dao and use his lower cultivation to easily break the killing moves of these two. Right now, Xiao Chen's pure saber Dao was something that even the saber sovereign Wu Xiaotian could not compare to. The crucial thing was that when two people attacked at the same time, if he broke one, it would be difficult to break the other's killing move. If only Xiao Chen's true body were closer. With two sabers, he would be able to receive these two moves rather easily. If others knew what Xiao Chen was thinking, they would probably feel like vomiting blood. Not easy to deal with. However, it was just not easy to deal with and not impossible to deal with. In the distant war chariot, Xiao Chen's true body narrowed his eyes. The magic energy in his sea of consciousness seemed to burn again as he stretched out his hand and pointed. Taiji Saber Domain. The clone formed by the life bestowal spell fired out a ring of yin and yang primordial energy, forming a black and white Taiji diagram under its feet. The Taiji Saber Domain instantly formed, and the yin and yang energies each turned into a dragon that spun wildly. Coincidentally, at this moment, Zhao Feng and Xing Feng entered the Taiji Saber Domain at the same time, one on the left and one on the right. Before the two could react, the spinning force pulled them left and right, their bodies somewhat out of control. In merely 1,000th of a second, the two also unleashed their own saber domains and controlled their bodies within the Taiji Saber Domain. However, it was already too late. The two, who were originally attacking from the left and right, were spun in the same direction, appearing in the same line. Now! Xiao Chen held up his saber and faced the two charging over. He thrust it out, and a saber light flickered. First, he broke unparalleled deity and demon, then he executed the star-shattering chop. Zhao Feng, who was displaying the might of a deity and demon, and the tyrannical Xing Feng, both cried out miserably at the same time. The sabers in their hands flew away. Zhao Feng and Xing Feng's feet landed on the stone pillar where Xiao Chen was. On the other side of the stone pillar, Xiao Chen held his saber and placed it on both of their necks at the same time. Zhao Feng's and Xing Feng's faces were burning with shame. The two attacked at the same time. However, not only did they not defeat the other party's clone, but they even got their sabers knocked away. Such an inconceivable scene caused everyone to be taken aback, and they were completely unable to understand what was going on. The shadowless saber sovereign, who thought that he would not be able to protect his clone just a moment ago, placed his saber on the necks of two people at the same time in the next moment. Thank you for letting me win. Xiao Chen withdrew his saber and stood upright with his hands behind his back. Xing Feng smiled bitterly and said, "You did not go easy on me. It is the two of us who are inferior. We accept our defeat wholeheartedly. I just want to know why my star-shattering chop is like a leaky mud house before you, shattering with one strike. I also want to know how you can easily break this unparalleled deity and demon with one casual strike. Am I, the ghostly blades man, really that weak? A self-created martial skill, is it really that bad?" The two were indeed convinced of their defeat. Even without that strange saber domain, they would still lose miserably if they ran into the shadowless saber sovereign. It was not because of how high the shadowless saber sovereign's cultivation was. Instead, it was because of the difference in the saber Dao. It was like the difference between the clouds in the sky and the mud on the ground. Simply put, the shadowless saber sovereign was like the saber techniques of those martial sages and martial monarchs, extremely laughable. The place fell silent. No one expected that after these two were defeated, they would ask the same question. Xiao Chen remained silent. He had to admit that this was indeed the case. If it were two swordsmen attacking him, this clone would not have been able to survive, as he was too familiar with the saber. However, he did not know how to answer these two people's questions. He did not know what to say. Foundation was a mysterious thing. Only those who had experienced it would understand it. If the two of you are willing to put down all your worldly possessions and travel through most of the Kunlun realm within 3 years, I will be willing to pay you back. The bladesmen of the various races do not care about seniority or cultivation. They put down all their pride and fight for the saber. You should be able to understand some of the reasons. When Xiren spoke up at the right time, answering this question for Xiaochen. Shadowless Saber Sovereign, am I right? Xiaochen nodded. Foundation is a very mysterious thing, but in fact, it's like a saying. The more you see, the more you'll understand. Zhao Feng, your matchless ghost god, is a mental energy skill. However, I have seen too many. I have even experienced the deity race's peak bladesmen executing similar martial techniques that are several times more brilliant than your unparalleled deity and demon. Tell me, do you think I can break your killing move easily? Xing Feng, I once fought with a sovereign martial emperor bladesman. I saw him really have a star with one saber strike. Do you still think that your star-shattering chop is very strong? Why are you not worth mentioning in my eyes? It is because there are people even stronger than you who fell to my saber. Chapter 1407. Now, it was absolutely silent, incredibly quiet. When the many bladesmen heard Xiaochen's words, they all entered deep thought. I've benefited from the lesson. Zhao Feng and Xing Feng said at the same time. Then, they performed cupped fist salutes and gently landed on their own stone pillars. When Xiren said, everyone here is a famous bladesman of the new generation in this golden age. You are all true bladesmen. As bladesmen, there is no need to worry too much about victory or defeat. Why don't you use this opportunity to exchange pointers with the Shadowless Saber Sovereign? Both sides will gain something, and this rare gathering will not be in vain. That's right. I am Feng Xingsheng. I mainly cultivate the fast wind saber Dao. Would the Shadowless Saber Sovereign please give me some pointers? Feng Xingsheng said sincerely as he stood up. When Xiren was right. Since the other party was clearly several levels higher than him, he might as well use this opportunity to exchange pointers and raise his cultivation of the saber Dao. Looking at the previous 3 challengers, even though they had lost, they had all gained something. They were the best examples. Xiaochen said calmly, sure. Please. After 10 moves, Feng Xingsheng was defeated. Xiaochen did not hesitate to share his understanding of the fast wind saber Dao, as well as the flaws of Feng Xingsheng's saber techniques. Feng Xingsheng closed his eyes and thought for a while. Then, he returned in satisfaction and started thinking hard. Following that, the challengers came in an endless stream, all of them exchanging moves with Xiaochen one after another. Fortunately, Xiaochen did not dislike such a scene. Instead, he rather liked it. When he pointed out the flaws of others, it also served as a reminder to himself. It was just like the saber in his hand. Although it was called the Pride Saber, Xiaochen controlled its life and death. He always had a humble heart in his heart. There were also some bladesmen who occasionally performed well. However, Xiaochen was not stingy with his praise. He even personally asked for pointers, not putting on any airs. For the past 3 years, Xiaochen had been like this. He was obsessed with the saber Dao. When he saw new martial techniques, he would not be ashamed to ask for pointers. He was already used to it. The atmosphere of the place became very lively. The effect that Xiaochen brought in this segment of making friends with the saber far surpassed Wen Xiren's expectations, making him very satisfied. As they chatted excitedly, the group started to discuss the ranking of the Saber School ranking based on the earlier fight with the Shadowless Saber Sovereign. Naturally, the Shadowless Saber Sovereign ranked first in the Saber School ranking without any surprises. Second place was Wen Xiren, who had fought with Xiaochen the longest. Third place was the ghostly bladesman, Zhao Feng. After resting for a while, he challenged the Shadowless Saber Sovereign again. Unexpectedly, he experienced a moment of enlightenment on the spot. Unparalleled supernatural and ghost took another step forward, leaving an extremely deep impression on people. In this tea party, aside from the shadowless saber sovereign, this ghostly bladesman Zhao Feng brought the most pleasant surprises. Kacha! In the middle of the arena, Xiao Chen's doppelganger suddenly shattered, and pride shot through the air. Everyone was stunned at first. Then, they looked in the direction that pride flew in before discovering that the shadowless saber sovereign's true body had arrived. Dang! The instant the cycle war chariot landed firmly on the ground, pride stabbed into it, and the war chariot started moving. The clear and cold sound of the wind chime slowly rang out. It was lively and pleasing to the ears. Come, let's go and welcome the shadowless saber sovereign. When Xiren immediately landed, and the group of bladesmen quickly followed, landing on the road. You are finally here. We have been waiting for a long time, when Xiren said with a faint smile. After all, the doppelganger was not the true body, so he had to treat it differently. Shadowless saber sovereign, will you come down from the war chariot and let us see your true appearance? Someone asked out of curiosity. Everyone was curious about the shadowless saber sovereign's true appearance. It was not just these bladesmen but also the cultivators who rushed over to watch the excitement. Just what kind of existence could gain such a reputation in just 3 short years? Had he always been a nobody, only erupting out in the golden age, or had he long been famous and just pretended to be mysterious? Immediately, more than 10,000 pairs of eyes stared at the cycle war chariot, waiting for the shadowless saber sovereign's answer. Xiaochen felt helpless in his heart. When he came to the tea party, he had already expected such a scene. However, right now, he really could not get off the war chariot. He still could not face his identity as the Blue Dragon King. Every time Xiaochen thought of the tombstones in the Scarlet Graveyard and the words, Xiaochen, written in blood, it was like a nightmare, appearing in his mind over and over again. Do not do to others what you do not want done to yourself. Since the shadowless saber sovereign is not willing to get off the war chariot, there is no need to force it. A resonant voice rang out from behind. Everyone was stunned at the same time. They all felt like they could not hold on to their weapons anymore, trembling in fear. It's Senior Saber Sovereign. Everyone turned their heads and saw the white-haired Wu Xiaotian. They immediately exclaimed. The Saber Sovereign Wu Xiaotian had not appeared in public for many years. The last time he appeared was when the Blue Dragon King underwent his great tribulation of wind and fire. Greetings, Senior Saber Sovereign. Greetings, Saber Sovereign. Wu Xiaotian's name as the Saber Sovereign was deeply rooted in everyone's hearts. He was the god of all bladesmen, someone they could not surpass. He was much stronger than the Inferno Saber Sovereign, the Ice Saber Sovereign, and the Storm Saber Sovereign, the one and only King of Sabers. Master, what happened to your hair? When Xiren quickly walked over and asked when he saw Wu Xiaotian's white hair. Others might not know, but he knew very well that his master was still full of black hair and full of energy in the morning. Now, he was clearly much older, and the ancient aura between his brows could not be concealed. I'm fine. I just put down some things. Wu Xiaotian was very satisfied with this disciple of his, so he spoke gently. Inside the war chariot, Xiaochen was astonished as well. He did not know how he managed to startle the Saber Sovereign. Could it be that the other party recognized him? That was impossible. Among the many wondrous uses of the cycle war chariot, there was one that could isolate it from the world, forming its own space. Even a supreme would not be able to figure out its true identity. Unless he walked out of the cycle war chariot, no one would know that he was the Blue Dragon King, Xiaochen. Whoosh! As Wu Xiaotian was thinking, he suddenly soared into the sky and shot toward the cycle war chariot. Reflexively, the 7 divine weapons on the cycle war chariot drew their scabbards one after another and charged at Wu Xiaotian. Dang! 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 Wu Xiaotian used his hand to catch the sabers. His every move contained a vast saber intent. He clashed with the divine weapons barehandedly without getting injured at all. Clanging sounds rang out like exploding thunder. Every time they exchanged moves, the entire heavenly saber mountain manor would tremble. Retreat! The cycle war chariot soared into the air and moved back 1 kilometer. Wu Xiaotian advanced further, his attacks increasingly faster, clashing with the 7 divine weapons. When Xiao Qin materialized the Taiji saber domain, Wu Xiaotian smiled bitterly. He really could not break such a technique. The other party's saber Dao had indeed reached great perfection, unrivaled. However, who was Xiao Qin? After all, he was a 9th heaven sovereign martial emperor. With the time saber in hand, he could fight primes. Most of the time, one did not need to rely on techniques to break the enemy. One could soar into the air and gather all one's cultivation in one finger. The 7 divine weapons all bounced back with a loud bang. The Taiji saber domain broke on its own. A shock wave swept out. The bladesmen present could not dodge in time, all of them vomiting blood and flying back. As they looked at the cycle war chariot, their faces filled with shock. The shadowless saber sovereign actually made Wu Xiaotian use his power. What kind of existence was he exactly? Whoosh! Using this instant, Wu Xiaotian entered the cycle war chariot with a flash of light. Brat, you are getting more and more gutsy. To think that you dare to attack me, Wu Xiaotian said with a smile as he casually sat down in the war chariot. When Xiao Qin heard this, he immediately knew that Wu Xiaotian had still managed to recognize him. He smiled bitterly and said, even if I can hide it from everyone in the world, I cannot hide it from Senior. What nonsense! I have played with sabers all my life. If I cannot even recognize a person, wouldn't I be making a fool of myself? Don't say anything first. Let me see your saber, Wu Xiaotian said as he pointed to the lunar shadow saber beside Xiao Qin. Xiao Qin rejoiced in his heart. He quickly handed it over and said, Senior, it has been almost 5 years since the item spirit of this saber merged with it. However, it still has not woken up. I wonder what is wrong with this saber. Good saber. Wu Xiaotian fiddled with the lunar shadow saber as he muttered to himself. It was like he did not hear Xiao Chen's question, making him anxious but helpless. After a while, Wu Xiaotian returned the saber to Xiao Chen. He said sullenly, indeed, it is as I guessed. Although her cultivation of the saber Dao has already surpassed mine, the hidden danger in her heart is even greater. What do you mean? There is nothing wrong with your saber. The problem is yours. She cannot recognize you. Naturally, she will not let you draw it. Wu Xiaotian said calmly, enunciating every word. However, these words were like thunder resounding in Xiao Chen's mind. Chapter 1408. What's going on? Why did the Saber Sovereign suddenly start fighting with the Shadowless Saber Sovereign? Could the Shadowless Saber Sovereign be plotting something? It does not seem like it. Look at the earlier exchanges. The Saber Sovereign dealt with the moves as they came. In the end, it seemed like he could not deal with the moves, so he used force to break the moves. If there really was a conflict, he would have used his full power from the start and not at the end. Nonsense. In that case, are you saying that Senior Wu Xiaotian is no match for the Shadowless Saber Sovereign? No. I'm just analyzing it based on the facts. The Saber Sovereign did not really intend to make a move on this Shadowless Saber Sovereign. What are the two of them talking about? There is no sound now. Seeing Wu Xiaotian fly into the cycle war chariot and not come out for a long time, the Heavenly Saber Mountain Manor's guests and cultivators all started to feel anxious. Only when Xiren vaguely guessed something. Master said that he let go of something. What did he let go of? What could he let go of that could instantly make Master's hair turn white, making him look so much older? Could it be? When Xiren's heart skipped a beat. As he looked at the cycle war chariot, an uncertain answer appeared in his heart. Inside the cycle war chariot, Xiao Qin was stunned for a while before saying, Senior is right. Actually, I should have thought of this long ago. However, I was not willing to face it in the end. Wu Xiaotian smiled and said, as a man, you can pick up and let go. There is nothing to regret. What happened back then was not your fault, and it was not what you wanted. Why blame yourself? However, after a while, Wu Xiaotian changed the topic, saying, "It is easy for me to say. However, when it comes to me, it is not that easy. Logic is always easy to explain. However, doing it is always the hardest. I am no different." Xiao Qin smiled. In the past 5 years, he rarely smiled. Now, Wu Xiaotian truly made him laugh. "Senior, no one consoles people like you do. What I said is the truth. There are some things that even I, who have lived for so long, do not dare to say that I have completely seen through. Furthermore, you are just a little fellow. However, things will eventually sort themselves out. There is no need for you to feel too conflicted. I believe that you will come out of it sooner or later." Xiao Qin nodded and said, "Thank you, senior. No need, I'll go out first. It's really stuffy in here. I don't know how you managed to stay here for 3 years. I'll give you a little toy." Wu Xiaotian sighed softly. He felt pity for Xiao Qin. This child's life was truly a little bitter. Xiao Qin took it. It was a small pouch that seemed to contain a token. Wu Xiaotian opened the curtain and stood up straight. He looked around and said, "I have something to announce now. I hope you won't be too surprised." "What is it?" Seeing how serious Wu Xiaotian was, everyone became curious and wondered what he was going to announce. Was it the Shadowless Saber Sovereign's true identity? Did he want to take in another disciple, or did he have some conflict with the Shadowless Saber Sovereign? "I, Wu Xiaotian, declare that from today onwards, from the moment I say these words, the title of Saber Sovereign is no longer mine, Wu Xiaotian, but the Shadowless Saber Sovereign." As soon as these words came out, there was an uproar at the scene, and it was silent for a long time. Inside the chariot, Xiao Qin happened to take out the token from the pouch. He saw an ancient and murderous word written on it, Saber. The place fell silent. No one knew that the Saber Sovereign Wu Xiaotian would suddenly say these words, giving the title of Saber Sovereign to the Shadowless Saber Sovereign, an existence that no one knew even his true face. Saber Sovereign was not just a title. With this title, one would receive the respect of all the bladesmen in the entire Kunlun realm. The luck that came with this title was immeasurable. Many peak bladesmen dreamed of obtaining this title. However, because of Wu Xiaotian's existence, this dream became extravagant. Now, this title was going to change hands. "Why?" someone asked, feeling confused. Wu Xiaotian replied indifferently, "There is no why. As long as he comes out of this war chariot within 10 years, no one will question my decision." Inside the war chariot, Xiao Qin was stunned by Wu Xiaotian's decision. Xiao Qin wanted to say something to reject it. However, Wu Xiaotian's words immediately rang out in his ears. "If you dare to object, I will expose your identity right now." Xiao Qin immediately shut up. This senior was still a senior, holding his life in his hands. "Don't overthink. This is a good thing for you, too." After dealing with Xiao Qin, many people still had doubts in their hearts. Someone asked loudly, "Does Senior know the true identity of the Shadowless Saber Sovereign?" "Naturally, I do. He is not a demon, so he can inherit my Saber Sovereign title. If there is anyone who is not convinced, as long as he is convinced of his defeat, he will hand over the Saber Sovereign title as well," Wu Xiaotian answered calmly. Wu Xiaotian answered calmly. After letting go of some things, he was much more open-minded about many things. When Xiren's heart skipped a beat. Indeed, it was as he expected. However, it was good that Master could let go. In this golden age, who knew how many people had designs on the Saber Sovereign? Being able to let go of things peacefully was better than being challenged by others. He did not ask for much, it was fine as long as Master could live out his days in peace. To celebrate the birth of a new Saber Sovereign, everyone here with a saber can head to the saber washing pool. This was a tangible benefit. Even if one was not a bladesman, one could soak in the saber washing pool. As long as one had a saber and soaked in the saber washing pool, the value of the saber would soar. The most mysterious thing in the heavenly Saber Mountain Manor was this saber washing pool. According to rumor, there was an ancient item at the bottom of the saber washing pool, eternal ice. According to rumor, it was a piece of ice that could never melt. Originally, it drifted in the starry heavens for tens of thousands of years. It underwent all sorts of baptisms in the starry heavens. Eventually, the first master of the heavenly Saber Mountain Manor obtained it and buried it in the saber washing pool. It was the existence of this eternal ice that gave rise to the various mysteries of the saber washing pool. Senior, is what you said true? Wu Xiaotian smiled faintly and said, naturally, I, Wu Xiaotian, am a man of my words. How can they be false? Xiren, do a head count and bring them to the back of the mountain. Yes, master. After when Xiren received the order, he immediately started to make arrangements. Wu Xiaotian left. After he left, all sorts of discussions broke out. To think that a new saber sovereign was born just like that. Wu Xiaotian handed the title over to someone who had never left the war chariot, someone who did not even know his true identity. I really did not expect Senior Wu Xiaotian to hand over the title of Saber Sovereign. Hee. What did I say earlier? I said that Senior Wu Xiaotian made a move to test the shadowless Saber Sovereign. In terms of saber techniques, Senior Wu Xiaotian is no match for the shadowless Saber Sovereign. That's why he used force to overcome technique in the end. However, this is not a good thing. It is easy to imagine that countless experts will challenge the shadowless Saber Sovereign in the future. Right, just because the Saber Sovereign acknowledged him does not mean that others will. He still needs to prove himself. That's right. Senior Wu Xiaotian already said that as long as one can defeat him, he will be the new Saber Sovereign. I think he is not simple. Even now, no one knows the true strength of this shadowless Saber Sovereign. It would not be easy to defeat him. Groups of bladesmen gathered in every corner of the heavenly Saber Mountain Manor, discussing the topic of the Saber Sovereign abdication. They had witnessed history. It was easy to imagine that this topic would spread throughout the entire Kunlun realm in less than a month. In this golden age, the sun, moon, and stars rose and fell. Anything could happen. Inside the carriage, Xiaochen had already regained his calm. He put aside the matter of the Saber Sovereign abdication. As he looked at the lunar shadow saber in his hand, Wu Xiaotian's words repeated in his mind. It is not the saber that has a problem. It is your heart that has a problem. The lunar shadow saber does not recognize you. Naturally, it will not let you draw it. Wu Xiaotian knew why it was like this, and so did Xiaochen. Only when Xiaochen truly walked out of his perplexity and got off this cycle war chariot could he return to himself. However, when Xiaochen closed his eyes, what appeared in his mind were the 500,000 kilometers of scarlet clouds. Scarlet crows filled the sky, the boundless graveyard, and the words, Xiaochen, drawn in blood. Fresh blood represented anger, foreboding, and hatred. Xiaochen opened his eyes and reached out to grab the saber hilt. Then, he gently pulled, but the lunar shadow saber did not budge at all. Little Ao Jiao, do you really not recognize the current me? Chapter 1409. Senior Shadowless, we are going to the saber washing pool. Do you want to come along? When Xiren asked as he walked over to Xiaochen, who was in the war chariot, interrupting his thoughts. Xiaochen shook his head slightly and put away the lunar shadow saber. Then, he said, Brother Wen, just address me as Shadowless. The saber washing pool is very famous. Naturally, I have to go and take a look. When Xiren smiled faintly and said, in that case, I'll lead the way for you. After saying that, when Xiren mounted his horse, and the cycle war chariot followed closely behind. A large group followed behind, all of them showing excited expressions. This time, it was all thanks to Xiaochen's appearance. Otherwise, Wu Xiaotian would not have allowed so many people to go to the saber washing pool at the same time. Xiaochen had heard of the saber washing pool long ago. Since he was here, he definitely could not miss it. After washing the 7 divine weapons properly, their quality could be raised by 1 grade. This was especially so since the 7 divine weapons were a complete set. Unfortunately, Xiaoqin could not draw the lunar shadow saber. Otherwise, it would be perfect. I can't be too stubborn, Xiaoqin thought to himself. Then, he took out another item and looked at it. That was a medallion filled with a somber aura. There was a simple saber carved on it. Wu Xiaotian did not explain its origins to Xiaoqin. However, Xiaoqin guessed that this should be some kind of inheritance between saber sovereigns, passed down from generation to generation. If anyone defeated Wu Xiaotian and snatched away the title of saber sovereign, they would have to hand over this medallion. This was a kind of ceremony that every saber sovereign had to follow. If anyone defeated him and snatched the title of saber sovereign, they would have to hand over this medallion. This was a kind of ceremony that every generation of saber sovereigns had to abide by. The moment his spiritual sense entered, Xiaoqin felt a strong suction. It was like his entire soul was being sucked in. The world spun around, and a desolate world appeared before Xiaoqin. The sky was chaotic, and there was nothing under his feet. The world spun around, and a desolate world appeared before Xiaoqin. The sky was chaotic, and there was nothing under his feet. Xiaoqin looked forward and saw a vast palace in the distance. Then, he walked over with some doubts. Pan Huang Palace. When he got closer, Xiaoqin looked at the plaque on the palace and muttered. Hello, the young man who inherited the title of Pan Huang's saber sovereign. The sudden voice startled Xiaoqin, and he hurriedly retreated. Only then did he realize that a young girl with her arms crossed had appeared beside him, floating in the air. Xiaoqin frowned and said, Who are you? What is this place? I am the item spirit of the saber sovereign medallion. You can call me Qing Yun. This is the world within Pan Huang's saber sovereign medallion, the young girl, Qing Yun, introduced unhurriedly, not feeling frustrated at all. Every generation's master of the saber sovereign medallion would have such an expression when they first came here. After seeing it many times, it was no longer strange. Who is Pan Huang? How is he related to Senior Wu Xiaotian? Qing Yun smiled and said, You really have a lot of questions. However, as the new master of Pan Huang's saber sovereign medallion, I have a duty to tell you. Pan Huang was the one who forged this medallion. He could be considered the first saber sovereign of the Kunlun realm. Wu Xiaotian was one of his inheritors. Without a doubt, the person who could forge the saber sovereign medallion was definitely a peerless expert. However, there had never been a person named Pan Huang in history. Could it be that this Pan Huang also left the abandoned land and erased his mark in this world? However, now was not the time to think about this problem. Xiaoqin pointed to the door and said, I understand. In that case, help me open the door. Qing Yun shook her head and said, That won't do. You have to open the door yourself. Only when you step through the door can you become the master of the saber sovereign medallion. Right now, you only have the qualifications. You still have to rely on yourself. Xiaoqin did not hesitate. He took a few steps forward and pushed ferociously. Pa! The huge force bounced back, hurting him so badly that he wanted to vomit blood. He had no choice but to get serious. Qing Yun explained, Stop trying. Unless you are as strong as the 9th Heaven's Emperor Wu, you will not be able to push it open. Xiaoqin did not feel dispirited. He only asked, What is in there? Nothing much. A lightning battery that Pan Huang left behind. It can continuously improve a bladesman's saber domain. There are also some Wu sculptures of past saber sovereigns. One can fight with them to temper their martial techniques. There is also the comprehension platform. It can help bladesmen comprehend saber energy. Wait, is this the saber energy you mentioned? Xiaoqin interrupted her. Resplendent motes of light appeared in his sea of consciousness on his palm. Each mote was as bright as a small sun. There was a total of 10 motes. These were Xiaoqian's saber energy. Qing Yun revealed a shocked expression. You are really a genius. No wonder Wu Xiaotian was willing to let you have the saber sovereign medallion. In history, only 3 saber sovereigns comprehended saber energy. To think that you managed to comprehend saber energy without even entering Panhuang Hall. Although it is just an embryonic form, it is just a matter of time before it becomes complete. It looks like this saber sovereign medallion will not be very useful to you. However, you should cultivate properly and push open the door as soon as possible. I'll teach you how to use this energy, and you will be able to leave. Xiaoqin came out of the saber sovereign medallion and thought about what Qingyun said. It looked like this was the benefit that Wu Xiaotian mentioned. This Pan Huang was somewhat mysterious. Unexpectedly, there was someone in the Kunlun realm who could comprehend saber energy before him. Furthermore, that person clearly went further than him. The temperature suddenly plummeted. When Xiren dismounted his horse in front, he should have arrived at the saber washing pool. Xiaoqin opened the curtains of the carriage, and an average-sized pool appeared in his vision not far away. Cold qi drifted on the surface of the water, making it somewhat hazy. No one could see through it. Senior Shadowless, please. When Xiren turned his head back and gestured for the cycle war chariot to enter. Clang! The 7 divine weapons unsheathed at the same time and turned into beams of flowing light stabbing into the pool. Qi! A cold energy assaulted Xiaoqian, and his entire body trembled. He felt like his soul trembled, and his entire body felt very comfortable. This feeling was even more intense than when his cultivation advanced. What made him even happier was that the 7 divine weapons moved about in the pool, completely out of control. The eternal mark ice was indeed profound. After a long time, the divine weapons started to sink. All sorts of impurities fell off their surfaces. By the time they reached the bottom of the pool, they looked brand new and bright. That's enough, when Xiren said softly, and the 7 divine weapons emerged from the water with a whoosh. Ice covered the sabers. Under the reflection of the sunlight, the ice slowly melted. After the sabers completely melted, they shone with a piercing light, dazzling everyone's eyes. The divine might contained within the sabers gave off an even stronger pressure. The saber washing pool truly lives up to its reputation. The might of the shadowless saber sovereign's divine weapon has increased by at least 10%. My saber is not a divine weapon. It should not be a problem to increase it by 30 to 50%. When the group of bladesmen waiting at the back saw such an obvious effect, they all became excited. Xiaoqin sheathed his saber in satisfaction. Then, the war chariot moved, making room for the people behind. Only 10 bladesmen can enter at a time. Everyone, please line up in order. There is no rush. Everyone will have a share. When Xiren waved his hand and got the 10 new generation bladesmen to step forward. At the same time, they controlled the situation. Friend, don't cut the line. However, an ordinary-looking white-clad man did not listen. He could not help but walk to the front out of curiosity and stare at the water. Hey! Hey! Did you hear that? I told you to go to the back. Zhao Feng could not help stepping forward and patting this person's shoulder. However, the white-clad man did not care. He did not even turn his head back. He muttered to himself, Eternal ice, a miraculous item of the world. To think that it is used to wash sabers. What a waste, what a waste. Did you hear that or not? Zhao Feng said with some anger in his tone. If the white-clad man still did not leave, he was prepared to attack. However, something strange happened. Suddenly, Zhao Feng was horrified to discover that the arm he used to pat the white-clad man's shoulder had lost its feeling at some point in time. Frost had frozen it. Young man, you are really courageous. It has been many years since someone dared to pat my shoulder. The white-clad man turned around and smiled faintly. However, that smile was so cold that it made one tremble in fear. This startled Zhao Feng into quickly retreating and chopping off this arm of his. Cassier! Cassier! The arm fell and shattered like ice. Chapter 14:10. Snow Demon. When Xiren frowned slightly, feeling somewhat surprised. What kind of demon could hide his aura when so many experts of the heavenly Saber Mountain Manor were present? Something is wrong. This demon must have a significant background. Otherwise, he could not hide from everyone. I cannot act rashly. It's a demon. Kill him. The 10 great bladesmen of the new generation beside Zhao Feng stood up at the same time and drew their sabers to hack at the white-clad man. Of the 10 great bladesmen, the weakest was Emperor Wu of the third heaven. The strongest, like Xing Feng and the others, were Emperor Wu of the fifth heaven. When these 9 people attacked at the same time, even a seventh heaven sovereign martial emperor would have to retreat, temporarily avoiding their sharpness. Be careful. This demon is not simple, Wen Xiren warned warily as he thought deeper. The white-clad man smiled coldly and no longer hid his aura. Surging demonic qi turned into a beam of black light and soared into the sky. The sky immediately darkened in an instant. The originally cold temperature plummeted again. Frost covered the ground. The eyebrows and beards of several cultivators froze. After this person stopped hiding his aura, a horrifying sovereign emperor's might surged out. The expressions of the 9 people in the air immediately changed. 8th Heaven Emperor Wu. That's not right. It is a 9th Heaven Sovereign Martial Emperor. This is a demon monarch. A 9th Heaven Sovereign Martial Emperor was a peak martial emperor, an extremely horrifying cultivation realm. There were many sovereign martial emperors in the Kunlun realm. However, the number of 9th Heaven Emperor Wu could be counted on 2 hands. In the deep abyss demonic world, aside from the 9 demon monarchs who were primes, the other 9 were only 9th Heaven Emperor Wu. This white-clad man was a 9th Heaven Sovereign. Without a doubt, he was a demon monarch. Retreat. Quickly retreat. Xing Feng, Feng Xingsheng, and the others were so frightened that their faces turned ashen as they frantically retreated. Even if they were lucky and did not die, they would be severely injured in the full power strike of a demon monarch. However, it was clearly too late to retreat now. The white-clad man threw a palm strike. White snow drifted down, and a mysterious phenomenon appeared. A snowy mountain rose from the ground behind him, carrying a boundless might of ice. Puchi. The 9 of them coughed out a mouthful of blood at the same time. The sound of their bones breaking rang out as they were sent flying. Many of them fainted on the spot. With just one palm strike, Xiaoqin defeated the 9 great bladesmen of the new generation. Everyone panicked, and the place turned chaotic. Clearly, the white-robed man was not here to kill. He glanced coldly at Wen Xiren and stomped on the ground. A wave of snow surged over, forcing Wen Xiren to use his saber to block and retreat again and again. No one dared to help, and no one dared to stop this demon emperor-level existence because only death awaited them. The end of the new generation of 9 great bladesmen was a good example. In an instant, there was no one else around the saber-washing pool. The white-robed man moved quickly as he jumped into the saber-cleansing pool. His target was the eternal ice. Ka! But at some point, a thick layer of ice had formed on the surface of the water. The white-clothed man who jumped into the water passed through the white fog-like cold air and landed heavily on the ice. His footsteps slipped, and he staggered, nearly falling down. Ice? The snow demon monarch stabilized his body and frowned. His will of ice had already reached great perfection, no one could resist it. At first glance, he discovered that this ice was somewhat strange. Something was not quite right. However, time was tight. There was no time to think. The snow demon monarch raised his hand and smashed down. The ice instantly shattered, turning into countless ice shards. However, the expected water did not appear. Instead, a surging flame appeared. The white-robed man's expression changed slightly. He sensed that this flame was not simple, so he quickly dodged. Fortunately, the white-robed man had not been careless. If he had let this heavenly snow divine flame charge over, even a demon monarch like him would have to put in a lot of effort to destroy it. The white-robed man's expression turned sullen. With this delay, he knew that he had lost his chance to take away the eternal ice. Wu Xiaotian would rush over soon. The white-robed man looked in the direction of the cycle war chariot and pointed. 9 storms formed in the air, filling the air with ice and snow as they surged over, sealing off all of Xiao Chen's paths. Bang! Inside the war chariot, Xiao Chen remained calm. He struck out with one hand, and the 7 divine weapons turned into dim lights flashing, stabbing at the ice and snow storms. The 7 ice and snow storms immediately shattered. The shock waves swept out, and the entire space trembled intensely. The buildings around the saber washing pool crumbled one after another. Terrifying cracks appeared in the ground. Everyone watched this scene in horror. Only the shadowless saber sovereign dared to fight with this demon monarch-level existence. If it were them, they would not even be able to last half a move. The cycle war chariot took 2 steps back, narrowly dodging the 2 ice and snow storms that pincer attacked. The 2 ice and snow storms clashed, giving off a loud sound. The shock waves swept out. The curtains of the cycle war chariot all flew up. Blood leaked out of a corner of Xiao Chen's lips. He had suffered some internal injuries. Stop! Just as the white-robed man was about to continue attacking, a saber light flew over. It was Wu Xiaotian rushing over. Snow Demon Monarch, you are really giving me face. To think that you would sneak into my heavenly saber mountain manor alone, Wu Xiaotian said coldly. The moment Wu Xiaotian said that, everyone was startled. It turned out that a demon monarch was charging over. The Snow Demon Monarch said indifferently, "You are too polite. If not for you being too strong, the other demons would have been discovered when they got close to the heavenly saber mountain manor. There was no need for me to come personally." Wu Xiaotian said calmly, "Go, then. You have already lost your chance to obtain the eternal ice. Ing Zongtian and the sword sovereign Lu Xiaoyun are rushing over. If you do not leave now, you will not be able to even if you want to." Wu Xiaotian said coldly, his gaze as sharp as a treasure saber. The white-robed man did not say anything. He met Wu Xiaotian's gaze, and a silent clash unfolded in the air. The 2 peak martial emperors started a competition of sovereign emperor's might. Rumble. The entire heavenly saber mountain manor started trembling intensely. Countless buildings collapsed. The surrounding astral arenas exploded one after another, looking like huge fireworks in the starry heavens. Emperor's might surged out. The surrounding cultivators were so frightened that they did not even dare to breathe heavily. They only felt cold sweat dripping down their backs. The mountain-like pressure made them not dare to move at all. The 2 emperors' might clashed, causing the world to change. Wu Xiaotian was like a treasure saber that connected the world to the ground. He gave off an unstoppable sharpness. The Snow Demon Monarch's vast demonic might was like a strong snowstorm, giving off a tyrannical aura that could seal the world in ice. At first, the 2 were evenly matched, neither giving way to the other. However, after 1 hour, Wu Xiaotian started to show signs of fatigue. Such a high-intensity clash of emperor's might was mentally exhausting. "Master." When Xiren's face sank, feeling very anxious. He wanted to go and help. However, with the double pressure from 2 peak 9th heaven Emperor Wu, he could not move at all. Everyone present started to feel anxious. Once the momentum fell into a disadvantage, victory would be decided in the next second. The Snow Demon Monarch's lips curled up slightly. "Wu Xiaotian, if it were in the past, I would have left already. However, I've changed my mind now. You are already old." Caw. Caw. However, just at this moment, at this most subtle moment, the cycle war chariot shook. Xiao Chen, who was in the chariot, gritted his teeth and did his best to control his body, shaking off the pressure from the 2 emperors' might. The frequency of the war chariot shaking intensified. Xiao Chen shouted, and the 7 divine weapons on the ground shot up and returned to their sheaths. They shot up and returned to their scabbards. In an instant, Xiao Chen managed to struggle free. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes, and he ferociously smacked the cycle war chariot with his right hand. The cycle war chariot instantly started moving while the thousands of cultivators present could not move. The war chariot slowly approached, and its strong aura merged with Wu Xiaotian's aura. It was like a sharp blade instantly piercing through the sky. The snow demon monarch vomited a mouthful of blood as he retreated quickly. He lost at the most crucial moment of the clash of auras. Snow demon monarch, why are you still not scramming? Wu Xiaotian scolded coldly. Wu Xiaotian, don't give me a second chance. You will not be so lucky next time. The snow demon monarch glared at the cycle war chariot with extreme hatred. Then, he left in a sorry state, not daring to linger. After the snow demon monarch left completely, blood leaked out of a corner of Wu Xiaotian's lips. He staggered back a few steps. Chapter 14:11. Master. When Xiren showed a startled expression. He stepped forward and quickly supported Wu Xiaotian. Inside the war chariot, Xiaochen was startled as well. Unexpectedly, Wu Xiaotian was already so severely injured. No wonder Wu Xiaotian did not give chase even though the snow demon monarch was injured. After thinking for a while, Xiaochen guessed the reason. A competition of emperor's might was a competition of aura, the sharpness in one's heart. Wu Xiaotian had just relinquished the position of saber sovereign, so he had lost most of his sharpness. Being able to fight with the snow demon monarch for 1 hour was already his limit. The snow demon monarch was right when he said that Wu Xiaotian was old. Wu Xiaotian waved his hand and said, "It's fine. Get everyone to continue lining up and use the saber washing pool. Shadowless and I will stand guard for everyone. Don't get scared off by the demons." So what if it is a demon monarch? He's still left with his tail between his legs. All right. When Xiren nodded. Then, he turned his head and said, "Everyone, continue. Keep the line in order. Don't get messy." The many cultivators rejoiced in their hearts. Unexpectedly, after the demon monarch stirred up trouble and blew the matter up, Wu Xiaotian still fulfilled his promise. "Many thanks, Senior Wu," everyone said in unison. Wu Xiaotian smiled faintly and did not say anything. The guests used the miraculous saber washing pool in an orderly manner. With the shadowless saber sovereign and Wu Xiaotian standing guard at the side, there was nothing to worry about. After this, the shadowless saber sovereign's title was well deserved. When the thousands of bladesmen present could not block the demon monarch's emperor's might, the shadowless saber sovereign stepped forward and chased away the snow demon monarch. What were demon monarchs? They were legendary characters. In the deep abyss demonic world, the 18 demon monarchs were all peak experts. Every one of them had the strength to destroy the world. They could casually suppress a large group of Emperor Wu with just a raise of their hands. It was not an exaggeration to say that an overwhelming demonic might could scare one away with just one look. Today, not only was the shadowless saber sovereign not frightened, but he even stepped forward and worked with Wu Xiaotian to scare away the other party. Furthermore, everyone could tell that Wu Xiaotian could no longer hold on. If not for Xiaochen stepping forward, the consequences would have been dire. "Kid, thank you." Wu Xiaotian sent a voice transmission. Xiaochen said, "Senior is too serious. In any case, I have already offended a blood demon monarch. I do not mind offending another snow demon monarch." Wu Xiaotian asked interestedly, "Don't call me senior. If you don't mind, just call me Big Brother Wu. What's going on with you and the blood demon monarch?" Since Wu Xiaotian already knew Xiaochen's identity, there was naturally no need to hide the matter of the destruction throne. Xiaochen recounted his experience at the Jadeite courier station. After hearing that, Wu Xiaotian smiled and said, "The blood demon monarch is a prime demon monarch, one rank higher than the snow demon monarch. You are really bold. The Jadeite king is quite smart. Should I place the eternal ice in your hands as well to avoid trouble?" Xiaochen hurriedly waved his hand and said, "I have no use for the eternal ice. It's better to give it to someone who needs it. The demonic calamity could erupt at any time. That snow demon emperor is right. Placing the eternal ice here is a little overkill. who do you think needs it the most in the Kunlun realm? A person immediately appeared in Xiao Chen's mind, Bai Wuxue. Bai Wuxue mainly cultivated the will of ice. Now, he was one of the leading figures of the Tianwu domain. After the Golden Age, he suddenly erupted. His talent and aptitude went without saying. Bai Wuxue, Xiao Chen said without thinking for long. Very well, I'll listen to you. After this matter is over, help me give the eternal ice to him. Wu Xiaotian answered even faster than Xiao Chen, nearly without thinking or hesitation. Big brother Wu, have you thought it through? Xiao Chen felt somewhat shocked. The eternal ice had been in the heavenly Saber Mountain Manor for at least 10,000 years. To think that Big Brother Wu would give it away just like that. In the end, this golden age is not a stage for us. The Kunlun realm will definitely be destroyed by us old fellows in this chaotic world, Wu Xiaotian said indifferently. Wu Xiaotian said indifferently. As his white hair fluttered, Xiao Chen looked through the curtains. He did not see desolation but a kind of carefreeness. After half a day, the guests left in satisfaction. Xiao Chen put away the eternal ice and left this heavenly Saber Mountain Manor. 3 days later, the news of Wu Xiaotian stepping down as the Saber Sovereign, together with the news of the shadowless Saber Sovereign knocking back the Snow Demon Monarch, spread throughout the Kunlun realm. At the same time, another piece of news came out. In the Sword Dao Tea Party, a mysterious swordsman from the Devil World appeared. He swept the Kunlun Sword Dao elites with a single sword strike, and no one could withstand 10 moves from him. In the end, the Sword King appeared and discussed the sword with him. The two of them talked about their own techniques, and hundreds of strange phenomena appeared. There was the sun and the moon competing in splendor. 10,000 swords streaked across the sky. 3,000 sword daos flickered and disappeared. The ancient sages confronted each other across the sky. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the Sword King was defeated and forced to hand over the Sword King token. Almost at the same time, the two kings of saber and sword changed hands. Compared to Wu Xiaotian taking the initiative to give up his position, the sword sovereign Lu Xiaoyun being forced to give up his position was even more shocking. As for the identity of the mysterious swordsman, there were many different opinions. No one knew which of the 18 demon emperors he came from. Some said that he was the most mysterious of the 18 demon monarchs, the first royal highness. Some said that he was the inheritor of the deep abyss sword demon. Some even said that he was the Dark Church's young church master. Rumors flew everywhere. No one knew if they were true or false. It was just like the shadowless saber sovereign, no one knew his identity either. In this golden age, one should never be shocked by anything for too long. Soon, something new would appear, overshadowing the glory of the former. Xiao Chen did not know about this news. After he left the heavenly Saber Mountain Manor, he did not immediately rush to the Tianwu domain to hand the eternal ice to Bai Wuxue. He had more important things to do. He had to refine the destruction throne and merge it into the cycle war chariot. Massacre, destruction, ruin, despair, pain, grief, death. After much effort, Xiao Chen finally collected all 7 thrones. Only with massacre would there be destruction. After destruction was destruction. Destruction brought despair, pain, and grief. After that, everything fell silent, seeking new life in death. From massacre to death, the 7 thrones happened to be a cycle. From the very start, Xiao Chen felt that this was not a coincidence. Many years ago, when his cultivation was still very low, he decided to use this as an opportunity to comprehend the state of cycle. Only with cycle could he resist Chu Chaoyun's primal chaos, the fusion of light and darkness. Cycle went from life to death, from death to life. One person's cycle was life, but the cycle of all things was fate. The 7 divine weapons of the 7 deadly sins had long since merged with the cycle throne. Each divine weapon had a throne as its core. Only pride, the sheathless saber, had not merged with any throne. What Xiao Chen wanted to do was merge pride with the destruction throne, making the cycle throne's name of cycle live up to its name. However, every saber of the 7 deadly sins had its own personality, with distinct characteristics. Some were greedy, some were envious, and some were furious. Pride was innately arrogant. It was not even willing to be sheathed. How could it easily merge with the destruction throne? Shaoqin sat on the cycle throne. Pride danced in the air, unwilling to land in his hand. Shaoqin had already tried once. Not only was pride unwilling to merge with the throne, but it even wanted to break the throne. After failing, pride remained like this. No matter how Shaoqin tried to control it, it was unwilling to land. Damn it! It is just a lousy saber, but it has such a bad temper, little 3 said hatefully from the 3-life mirror. Whoosh! Saber lights spread out as pride sent out a few saber lights from nowhere, chopping at little 3. This startled little 3, causing it to quickly dodge, appearing to be in a sorry state. Upon seeing this, pride became even more cocky. It spun in the air, jumping up and down, flying into the sky. As it spun, resplendent saber lights shot out from its body. Instantly, saber images filled the air and howled in all directions. Pride was as cocky as it could be, not giving Shaoqin any face at all. You want me to merge with that lousy thing? Dream on. Everything is ready. Could it be that I have to stop advancing on this saber? Just as Shaoqin hesitated, the lunar shadow saber beside him and its sheath flew out. Dang! The lunar shadow saber struck Pride, which was jumping up and down. A melodious sound rang out, sounding like a miserable shriek. Pride's light vanished and it fell to the ground. I can't accept this. Pride quickly leaped up. In the end, it was ruthlessly knocked back down again. After 10 odd times, it no longer dared to jump up and obediently flew back into Shaoqin's hand. When Shaoqin looked forward, only the lunar shadow stood in the air, its light withdrawn. Chapter 14:12. Lunar Shadow. Lunar Shadow. How can my lunar shadow let other sabers bully me? Shaoqin was slightly distracted by this. He gently stretched out his hand, and the lunar shadow immediately put down its pride and slowly flew over. Shaoqin stretched out his hand and grabbed the lunar shadow saber with all his might. However, he was disappointed again. He still could not draw the saber. Shaking his head, Shaoqin put down the lunar shadow saber and flicked his finger. The dragon phoenix cauldron flew out of the universe ring and landed firmly on the ground. A flame spun in Shaoqin's right eye. After a while, the lunar true flame surged out. Boom! The flame in the dragon phoenix cauldron blazed. Shaoqin sent in the destruction throne. Then, he glanced at Pride. Although Pride felt dissatisfied, it still slowly flew towards the dragon phoenix cauldron. After the two entered, Shaoqin immediately closed the cauldron. Shaoqin had already merged 6 times before. This time, he was very familiar with the process. He carried out the various steps in an orderly manner. Buzz! On the carriage, Envy was the first to draw the saber. Shaoqin stretched out his hand and pointed. The saber gave off a bright light, piercing through the sky and attracting starlight into the cauldron. Shaoqin's refining method came from the secret manual of the Big Dipper Palace disciples in the Zodiac Hall. When cultivated to a high level, he needed to infuse starlight into the cauldron. Initially, Shaoqin needed to draw out astral energy himself. Now that the 6 divine weapons successfully merged, they could help him draw out astral energy, making it much easier. The 6 divine weapons drew one after another. Starlight shone on the dragon phoenix cauldron, giving off a bright light. The carvings of the dragon and phoenix on the cauldron seemed to come to life in the light, dancing and chasing each other. In the heart of an emperor, the primordial energy continuously drained. Shaoqin formed hand seals and sent beams of light into the cauldron. This made the flame in the cauldron burn even more ferociously. The starlight falling from the sky was like adding oil to the fire. The merging of the two was not simple. It was time-consuming and draining. It was a huge test of one's mind and primordial energy. If one's mind could not endure, resulting in a wrong hand seal or insufficient primordial energy, it would not only result in failure, but it would also cause the two treasures to explode. Therefore, he couldn't afford to make even half a mistake. Once he did, there wouldn't be a second chance. Just like that, he was extremely cautious and constantly expended a large amount of primordial energy for an entire month. Whether it was day or night, this place was always brightly lit by the stars and the curtain of night hung high in the sky. Fortunately, there were no signs of human habitation within 1,000,000 kilometers of this place. Even if this continued for another half a year, no one would discover him. On this particular day, starlight gathered, and a saber-chi knocked away the cauldron. After half a month of anxiety, Xiaochen finally relaxed. At this point, it didn't matter much to him anymore. Wait, something's not right. Logically speaking, the blade of pride should have flown out the moment the furnace was sent flying. The previous 6 divine weapons had all fused in the same manner. Was there an accident? Just as Xiaochen was about to extend his spiritual sense to check it out, the Dragon Phoenix cauldron exploded with a bang. Strictly speaking, it did not explode. It was not that a saber light had split it into pieces. Pride shattered the Dragon Phoenix cauldron. Then, it soared into the air and headed straight for Xiaochen. A divine weapon devouring its master. The saber was filled with a state of destruction. Strands of saber chi containing the state of destruction swept out wildly. Horrifying cracks appeared in the ground. Rumble. Loud sounds rang out without end. Everywhere the saber passed, the ground cracked. Boundless dirt flew into the air. In that instant, dirt flew everywhere, covering the sky and covering the sun. It was like a berserk dragon filled with destructive power. Clang! 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 6 divine weapons flew over one after another, blocking in front of Xiaochen. However, in just one exchange, Pride knocked them back. After merging with the destruction throne, Pride's sharpness soared, its sharpness pressing down. In mere moments, Pride arrived in front of Xiaochen, less than 1 kilometer away. However, there seemed to be an invisible wall blocking Xiaochen's path. Pride could not pierce through. The incredibly fatigued Xiaochen revealed a smile. It looked like the fusion was pretty effective. That's enough playing around. Xiaochen ferociously smacked down with the back of his hand, and Pride trembled for a moment before flying far away, scattering all its sharpness. No matter how proud Xiaochen was, he was just a saber. He could be friends with a saber, but he absolutely could not become its slave. Come back. Xiaochen said softly, and the 7 divine weapons all returning to the back of the cycle throne. The instant the 7 divine weapons returned to the scabbard, the lines on the cycle throne all lit up, giving off a resplendent light. The cycle throne started spinning uncontrollably. What's going on? As the throne spun rapidly, there was no time for Xiaochen to think. Soon, the spinning throne kicked up a strong sandstorm, forming a 3-kilometer-long saber. Many strange scenes appeared before Xiaochen's eyes. The scenes flashed by too quickly. He only managed to remember one. Dark clouds filled the sky. A man stood on the Sky Dome Realm's hidden dragon lake, holding a sword. 9 dragon veins soared under his feet. As the dragon veins soared, the entire Tianwu continent surged. Countless cities were destroyed, countless mountains collapsed, and the sea turned into mulberry fields. All this happened in one breath. The scene enlarged. The other lower realms materialized by the immortal lord's residences felt the pull of the Sky Dome realm. They turned into beams of light and flew towards the Sky Dome realm. What a majestic scene it was. The 3,000 lower realms seemed to merge into one, all under the feet of this sword-wielding man, forming an undefeatable dynasty. 10,000 years is a cycle. There is only one chance every 10,000 years. Blue Dragon King, if you do not draw your saber now, when are you going to do so? The Blue Dragon King brandished his sword and pointed to the front. At the limits of his vision, he saw a white-clad man standing in the starry heavens, standing on a Taiji yin-yang diagram. Ka Xie. All the scenes shattered, and the throne stopped spinning. Xiaochen felt his entire body go weak, devoid of strength. The cycle of all things was fate. In that earlier moment, he seemed to have seen his own fate. Is the person holding the sword Chu Chaoyun? What exactly is the grudge between me and Chu Chaoyun? What kind of opportunity comes only once every 10,000 years? Xiaochen did not believe in fate. He had never believed in it. In the three-life mirror, he did not choose the future. However, it seemed like fate did not give him a chance to escape. Whether he was willing or not, he could not avoid that battle with Chu Chaoyun. It looks like there is really some unavoidable karma in this. Whether I am willing or not, 10,000 years ago, someone was already the cause. Xiaochen muttered to himself, entering deep thought. A chance that comes once every 10,000 years. 10,000 years ago, the last Tianwu emperor fought with the Qing emperor. 10,000 years later, it was his turn to fight with Chu Chaoyun. Never mind. When I am stronger, I will make a trip to the Blue Dragon Palace. The answer will be revealed then. Right now, I should check out the state of cycle and see how well I have merged with it. Xiaochen closed his eyes and sent out a strand of his spiritual sense into the mental world within the throne with a thought. Around him, 7 rays of light of different colors revolved around him. Massacre, destruction, ruin, pain, grief, despair, and death. This was the first time Xiaochen grasped all 7 states. This feeling was great. Xiaochen stretched out his hand and made a grasping motion, grabbing all 7 beams of light. Immediately, the 7 emotions continuously assaulted his mind. Xiaochen's will was firm, his heart like a boulder as he coldly watched the changes in the emotions. The 7 lights continuously changed, but they could not truly merge. After Xiaochen figured out the feeling, he let go, and the 7 states immediately scattered. Cycle arts. Xiaochen still needed the cycle arts before he could cultivate the true state of cycle. Historically, the evil king had reached this step as well. However, he fell at the final step and did not succeed. The Mirage Immortal Palace required Xiaochen to find the cycle arts in this great forbidden land. The cyclic astral lord once said that he had seen the cycle arts on a wall of the Mirage Immortal Palace. Back then, the cyclic astral lord even promised to accompany Xiaochen into this great forbidden land and help him obtain the cycle arts. However, this person could not be trusted or befriended. Xiaochen had already seen through the cyclic astral lord's true colors long ago. In the end, the cyclic astral lord had to rely on himself. Chapter 14:13. Xiaochen set aside the matter of the Mirage Immortal Palace for now. He wanted to see how much stronger the cycle throne had become after it was mended. The cycle throne was a quasi-primordial emperor treasure. Its greatest use was that it could allow one to control 7 divine weapons as they pleased. In the Kunlun realm, even the strongest bladesmen could only control 2 sabers. However, Xiaochen could control 7 divine weapons. The most crucial thing was that these 7 divine weapons were a set. Previously, Pride had not merged with the Destruction Throne. Although the 7 divine weapons were a set, there was a shortcoming: they could not be completely unified. Now that the 7 divine weapons merged with the Destruction Throne and soaked in the saber washing pool, their might would definitely increase significantly. With a thought, the 7 divine weapons came out of their scabbards at the same time. Xiaochen gently tapped with his finger, and 7 figures appeared on the ground, quickly grasping the saber hilts. Pride, void-breaking stance. The light within 1 kilometer of the figure holding Pride vanished, turning pitch black. Everything in the surroundings returned to this saber. Then, that figure soared into the air and vanished. It was like he teleported. The next time he appeared, he burst out with a 30-kilometer-long saber light, looking as resplendent as the sun. The space in front shattered like glass, shattering into powder. If a small star were here, it would have exploded. Xiaochen nodded slightly. After merging Pride with the Destruction Throne, he executed the first move of the flawless saber technique. Its might was not much weaker than his actual bodies. In fact, it might even be stronger. The state of the destruction throne happened to be compatible with the void-breaking stance. It was impossible for it not to be stronger. Wrath, dragon subduing stance. Wrath merged with the destruction throne. It was the most suitable for executing the dragon subduing stance. Dragons were tyrannical creatures in the first place. In ancient times, there was a son of heaven who compared himself to a true dragon. When the son of heaven raged, millions of corpses would fall. However, when a true dragon raged, it would not be as simple as millions of corpses. Even a nation or a dynasty would be destroyed. The figure holding wrath quickly executed the second move of the flawless saber technique, dragon subduing stance. With this move, 1,000 berserk dragons stood under his feet. Dragon might filled the air. Using the might of a true dragon, he turned it into saber might that could sweep through the galaxy. Greed, falling moon stance. Within 3 years, Xiaoqin had perfected the flawless saber technique. The third move was the falling moon stance. In this life, Xiaoqin had a fate with the moon. Many of his martial techniques were related to the moon. Flawless bright moon, moon bright like fire, 1,000-year death, 1,000-year flame, and many others were related to the moon. This falling moon stance combined all the martial techniques related to the moon into the flawless saber Dao. With a flash of the saber light, a bright moon fell to the ground. A human figure flew across the sky and the moon fell to the ground. Jealousy blade, heartbreak style. Because the heavens were unfair, everyone would have a heart full of jealousy. They would feel sorrow, pain, and unwillingness because of jealousy. Along the way, he had experienced it deeply. In the end, the pain was so great that even his heart was broken. The fourth move of the flawless saber technique was unleashed with inspiration, the heartbreaking stance. This saber shatters the heart, first shattering oneself, then shattering the enemy. It was extremely powerful, but it was also a double-edged sword. It could injure the enemy by 1,000, but also hurt oneself by 800. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Xiaoqin could not use this move. The specialty of the flawless Dao was the most obvious in this move. There was no perfect saber Dao or a perfect person. There was only a heart that pursued perfection. Laziness blade, Lingyun stance. Laziness was human nature. Everyone was lazy. Without laziness, how could there be such a beautiful world with thousands of temptations? How could one restrain oneself? Only the lofty aspiration of Lingyun remained in one's heart, thinking of the scenery on the tall mountain, looking at the majesty of the clouds. The flawless saber technique's fifth move, Lingyun stance. A youth with lofty aspirations did not worry. There would always be a saber with the word Lingyun carved in one's heart. One day, when this saber was unsheathed, it would definitely soar into the sky, soaring into the clouds and soaring into the 9 heavens. Lust blade, shadowless stance. Red lanterns and wine, indulging in a life of luxury, indulging in sensual pleasures until death. As the saying went, lust was a saber. This saber was the most ruthless and the most venomous. This saber was formless, killing without a trace. The color domain saber was such a venomous saber. The sixth move of the flawless saber technique used one's strong mental energy. When combined with this saber, one could send out a shadowless saber, creating many illusions and thousands of temptations, indulging in sensual pleasures until death. Gluttony blade, heaven swallowing stance. This move was the flawless saber technique's seventh move. It was also the strongest move. It represented Xiaoqian's ambition to swallow the heavens. The moment this move was executed, it could swallow up any martial technique, drowning it in the flawless saber Dao, the death Dao that represented the end. The 7 figures executed the flawless saber technique one after another. Then, they exchanged moves and attacked each other. Xiaoqian watched coldly, doing his best to find the flaws in every move. Then, he continuously modified them. After merging all 7 thrones, the flawless saber technique would officially appear. Whether Xiaoqian could keep his title as the saber sovereign depended on this flawless saber technique. Xiaoqian would depend on this flawless saber technique. Hence, he needed to continuously perfect it. As for the yin-yang saber formation, it was a different direction. It corresponded to his understanding of saber techniques and formations. One was his personal saber Dao, and the other was a saber technique formation. The two did not conflict with each other. Instead, they complemented each other. 3 days later, Shaoqin came out of closed-door cultivation. He immediately learned that the demons had taken the sword's sovereign medallion. The first thing Shaoqin thought of was Chu Chaoyun. Although there were many outstanding talents in the demonic world, and the 18 crown scions were all ridiculously strong and talented, none of them could defeat a sword sovereign in terms of swords. However, none of them could defeat the sword sovereign in terms of swords. Only Chu Chaoyun could. However, even if it was Chu Chaoyun, Shaoqin did not have much of a relationship with him for now. However, the second piece of news made him frown. 7 days ago, 3 crown scions of the Blood Demon Royal Hall, the Winged Demon Royal Hall, and the Fire Demon Royal Hall worked together to set up a trap for the Water Moon Alliance in the savage battlefield. The alliance suffered heavy casualties. For the sake of protecting the other members, the alliance chief Bai Wuxue took the initiative to fall back, blocking the 3 crown scions and sustaining severe injuries. Now, his whereabouts were unknown, his fate unknown. This battle was a disastrous loss for the Tianwu domain. Originally, after the 3 holy masters defected to the deity Dao Union, the Tianwu domain experienced the sorrow of not having a leader. The demons slaughtered them horribly. After much difficulty, Bai Wuxue appeared and stopped everyone, establishing the Water Moon Alliance. This instantly reversed the situation between the humans and the demons in the Tianwu domain. Not only did he stop the arrogance of the demons, but he also hunted down many demons. However, after this battle, the Water Moon Alliance fell apart. Bai Wuxue's fate was unknown, and his future became uncertain. After that, more news came. It turned out that the 3 demon royal halls were here for a forbidden land in the savage battlefield. 10,000 years ago, the Qing Emperor once killed a demon monarch and sealed his corpse in the dragon burial mound. The demon monarch had a peerless demonic sword in his hand. It was called Demonic Shadow. Now, the appearance of tens of thousands of dragon caves in the dragon burial mound at the same time was a sign of the demon sword appearing. The crown scions of the 3 demon royal halls were here for this powerful demon sword. Surrounding and killing the Water Moon Alliance was just something they did along the way. However, the dragon burial mound was very vast. Who knew how many dragon caves there were? No one knew which dragon cave the corpse of this demon monarch was sealed in. They could only search for it slowly. Rumor said that the other 18 demon royal halls would all rush over. The 3 demon royal halls were just the vanguard. Whoever obtained this powerful demon sword would become the new leader of the demonic world. In the future, when they reached the peak, they would be the strongest demon monarch. The 10 crown scions of the demonic world were all ambitious people. Without a doubt, they would rush over. As the outstanding talents of the Kunlun realm, they naturally would not let the 18 demon royal halls obtain the demon sword. Chu Yang, the leader of the heavenly starry ocean, Sima Lingxian, the leader of the dark sea, Bai, the leader of the fiend domain, and the experts of the deity Dao Union were all on their way to the savage battlefield. The dragon burial mound immediately became a place of trouble. It was like a huge whirlpool. As the wind blew and clouds churned, a startling battle would erupt. The opportunity of the demon sword's appearance would bring the probing conflict between the Kunlun realm and the deep abyss demonic world to a new peak. After that, this golden age would become even more chaotic. Only when the demonic calamity arrived and the 2 realms fought to the death would this chaotic era end. Shaoqin wanted to stay far away from this troublesome place. However, he had promised Wu Shaotian that he had to give the eternal ice to Bai Wuxue. Shaoqin had to go to the savage battlefield even if he did not want to. Chapter 14:14. Each of the 7 great forbidden grounds had its own mysteries. As for which one was the most dangerous, there was no conclusion. However, if one had to ask which place had the most stories, it had to be the savage battlefield. In ancient times, during the peak of martial arts, this place was already a famous land of fortuitous encounters. There were immortal graveyards, ruins of immortal Tao sects, ancient divine mountains, and various ancient beasts and king spirit veins. This place had always been a holy land for martial artists. However, it was during the peak and most prosperous era of martial arts that a 100-clan war broke out here. In the end, the abyssal demonic world also joined in. This war eventually evolved into a catastrophe, causing the decline of martial arts to this day. Even the strongest Qing emperor 10,000 years ago had a prerequisite. He had to be the strongest person in the post-ancient times. During the peak of martial arts, when emperors were as common as clouds and saints were everywhere, the Qing emperor was not the strongest. The battle had turned this sacred land of the martial way into a desolate land. Its geography had changed completely, and today, it had become one of the 7 great forbidden lands. It was filled with danger and countless forbidden areas. Regardless, this place was still filled with fortuitous encounters. Merely, compared to the ancient era, this place was far more dangerous. The corpses of the various great emperors, the blood of the sovereigns, and the resentment of the demon monarchs had already changed the geography of the Holy Land, turning it into an ominous place. Now, in the golden age of the post-ancient era, this place was once again stirred up, attracting outstanding talents from all over to attack. This time, where would the Kunlun realm go? Would it be glory or decline? No one knew. When Shaochen was still a martial monarch, he had come to the savage battlefield with his first senior sister and the others. At that time, he had been weak. Shaochen could only walk at the periphery and had to be careful. There were too many places in the vast savage battlefield that he did not even dare to look at. Now that he had snuck in, it was like revisiting an old haunt. Compared to the past, the difference in power was like the difference between heaven and earth. However, he was even more careful and cautious. The higher one stood, the more reverence one had for the world. Shaochen was here to look for Bai Wuxue. If possible, he would not participate in the fight for the demon sword. It was going to be a huge mess. Once they got involved, it would be very difficult for them to escape. There were countless places in the vast savage battlefield, and the environment was very complicated. There were desolate plains, swamps, hills, deserts, forests, and everything else. Finding Bai Wuxue would not be easy. Without a good plan, it would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. However, Shaochen was not afraid of looking for a needle in a haystack. He was afraid that he would not even have the chance to do so. Bai Wuxue better not die. In the war chariot, Shaochen looked at a map. The place he wanted to go was the Dragon Burial Mound. Right now, most of the people of the Winged Demon Royal Hall, the Blood Demon Royal Hall, and the Fire Demon Royal Hall should be at the Dragon Burial Mound, wishing that they could find that demon monarch's corpse. Shaochen had been to the Dragon Burial Mound once before. He remembered that the place was very special. If one took the initiative to look for it, one would not be able to find a dragon cave. Only when the dragon cave appeared on its own would there be a chance to enter. At that time, he did not know the reason behind it. From the looks of it, it must have something to do with the demon emperor's corpse from 10,000 years ago. To be more precise, it might have something to do with the demon sword, Evil Shadow. The appearance of more than 10,000 dragon caves was clearly abnormal. It was not hard to understand why the demons wanted to use this opportunity to obtain the demon sword. As for Shaochen, he wanted to force out Bai Wuxue's whereabouts from these demons. At the very least, he needed to know if Bai Wuxue was alive or dead. The black cycle war chariot turned into a graceful figure as it flew. Along the way, Shaochen saw many war chariots, warships, and groups of cultivators of the various races of the Kunlun realm. However, these people's cultivations were not very high. Presumably, the outstanding talents of the various places had not rushed over yet. Only the cultivators of the Tianwu domain had come. Shaochen's war chariot did not stand out among them. He even saw several war chariots that were decorated exactly the same as the cycle war chariot, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. After a while, they arrived at the dragon burial mound. When Xiaochen peered through the curtains, he felt startled. The original dragon burial mound had been hidden under endless mountain peaks. However, now, all the peaks had crumbled. The boundless mountain range had vanished, turning into a boundless land of shattered rocks. Many true dragon caves were exposed in the shattered ground. There were so many that it was flabbergasting. Above every dragon cave, there was a huge dragon-shaped chi current shuttling through the clouds as if it was alive. The strangest thing was that the dragon chi was all black. Dragon chi was originally an auspicious thing. However, it seemed very strange here. When Xiaochen looked around, he saw that the various dragon caves in the boundless shattered ground seemed to follow some sort of pattern. Together with the dragon chi in the sky, Xiaochen vaguely felt that the scene before him resembled a certain geomancy. However, the boundless shattered ground was too vast. There were so many dragon caves that it was flabbergasting. Xiaochen could not see them clearly, so he could not confirm his guess. After the Tianwu domain cultivators arrived at the periphery of the dragon burial mound, they gathered at a mountain range, not daring to enter rashly. A stone stele stood at the periphery of the dragon burial mound. The corpses of many human cultivators were stuck in sharp rocks around the stone stele. If one looked carefully, they would discover that these were all the elites of the Water-Moon Alliance. Their deaths were very miserable, a ghastly sight. For large, bloody words were written on the stone stele, "All who enter will die." Looking at the many corpses, the Tianwu domain cultivators gritted their teeth in hatred. However, no one dared to charge in. Some of these people were the friends and relatives of the dead. Their eyes turned bloodshot, and they wanted to charge in without a care for their own safety. However, their companions held them back. The people of the Water-Moon Alliance died really miserably. I heard that the Water-Moon Alliance was originally surrounding the Blood Demon Royal Hall. Who could have imagined that the Winged Demon Royal Hall and the Fire Demon Royal Hall would suddenly appear and surround them instead? They got tricked badly. These Demon Crown Scions purposely spread false news before this, planning for an entire month. They even purposely killed several Demon Emperor Wu. Otherwise, Bai Wuxue would not have fallen for it. How hateful! To think that our Tianwu domain is so large. After such a big thing happened, no one stepped forward. The sons of the three holy masters joined the deity Dao Union and followed Diwuk's lead. If Diwuk does not say anything, they will not make an appearance. Furthermore, Shui Lingling is in closed-door cultivation, and Enjuanshi is wandering the starry heavens. There really is no one left in the Tianwu domain. If only the Blue Dragon King were still around. How could these demons be so arrogant? Don't mention that person. This is no longer the era of the Blue Dragon King. Back then, he jumped off the Emperor's road. Who knows if he is still alive or not? Inside the war chariot, Xiaochen listened to the discussions of the surrounding cultivators and gained a rough understanding of what happened. 4 demons stood on a rock not far from the stone stele. Their eyes showed some mockery as they looked at the Tianwu domain cultivators from afar. Of the 4 demons, 2 were from the Blood Demon Royal Hall, 1 was from the Winged Demon Royal Hall, and the last was from the Fire Demon Royal Hall. They were all royal clan disciples with purple marks on their foreheads. With these 4 people guarding this place, the hundreds of Tianwu domain cultivators did not dare to move. There were even several greater Heavenly Emperor Wu among them. This was really ironic. This was the Kunlun realm, the territory of the human race. Yet, these demons became the masters. With so many cultivators charging over, no matter how powerful the 4 demons were, they would not be able to kill them all. It would be impossible to defend this place. However, this was reality. Everyone feared death, no one dared to move. Boom! On the rock, a demon from the Blood Demon Royal Hall felt bored and pointed. The corpse of a human cultivator hanging on a sharp rock immediately exploded and turned into a splatter of blood, looking extremely cruel. Ha! Qin Yun, unexpectedly, you have such a hobby. People are already dead, yet you still want to dismember their corpses. However, this method of yours is not very brilliant. Watch me. The demon in flaming robes from the fire demon royal hall laughed loudly. Then, he snapped his fingers, and a human corpse immediately burned to ashes. That is nothing. Watch me. The blue-clad demon from the winged demon royal hall became interested. He stretched out his hand, and countless wind blades descended, slicing a corpse into thousands of pieces. Bastards! I'll fight it out with you. A Tianwu domain cultivator in the crowd roared when he saw his friend's corpse being trampled on like that. Don't go. If you go, you will fall for it. When the experts of the other domains arrive, we will settle the score with them. Although the person beside him was furious, he was still rational and did his best to hold the other party back. The blood demon Qin Yun sat on a rock. When he saw this scene from afar, he smiled and said, "There is really no one left in the Tianwu domain. Bai Wuxiu have fled like a dog. You all are not even comparable to dogs." After saying that, the four started laughing at the same time. As they laughed, their heads flew off at the same time. The headless bodies slowly fell over, and a war chariot descended, crushing the four corpses to dust before flying off again. Clang! The flying war chariot happened to be in the air, catching the four flying divine weapons. The resonant sound of sabers lingered in the surroundings, lingering for a long time. However, the black war chariot had already vanished without a trace. The saber does not touch the hand, and the person does not leave a shadow. It is the shadowless saber sovereign. Someone cried out hoarsely only after a long time before he reacted to what happened.